The Great British Getaway. Millions of Brits are expected on the roads this Good Friday in what's predicted to be the busiest travel day of the year. Are you in that chaos somewhere?
Meanwhile, rail passengers have been warned of delays to their journeys as Network Rail carries out a number of major engineering works.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on the 15th of April and it's Good Friday. This is Breakfast on GBNews with Stephen and Anne.
Now, if you're getting behind the wheel this morning, then don't forget you can take us with you because we're also on the radio, of course, on DAB+. And coming up for you today,
Harry and Meghan have flown to the UK to hold a secret meeting with the Queen at Windsor ahead of their appearance at the Invictus Games in The Hague.
the Prime Minister wants to see the first migrants processed in Rwanda within 6 weeks as part of a scheme to curb channel crossings.
And it is 33 years to the day when 97 men, women and children lost their lives in the Hillsborough disaster. We'll speak to one survivor later on in the programme. And to mark the anniversary, the Liverpool Lighthouse Choir have recorded Abide With Me.
Abide with me, fast falls the eventide.
Now, as always, we want to hear from you this morning. There's lots to talk about today, whether it's memories of Hillsborough. I mean, 33 years actually is shocking. It was 96, of course, who died in the immediate aftermath, and then someone else who's suffered along with their injuries passed away, and that was...
Which makes it 97 in all, and everybody talks now about the 97. But it took so long, so very, very long for the families to get any degree of, I don't know, acknowledgement and justice, and to finally quell the awful rumours that were put around about the behaviour of the fans. Never was a total myth, but it was perpetrated and became very, very painful for all of those families.
And it scarred a city.
Yes.
Still. So if your thoughts on that, of course, would be very welcome. Also, perhaps your thoughts on Harry and Meghan.
I know.
Secret visit to the... I mean, I think they've done the right thing. I think it's quite nice.
They should have done it ages ago, but it's really nice that they have at last done it. Apparently, they called into Windsor and were seen by lots of onlookers because there were crowds of people there before the Maundy service. And they must have known that, I suppose. But apparently people on coaches who were sort of being ferried in and out of the castle said, hang on a minute, isn't that Harry and Meghan? They were crossing the road or something to get into a particular part of the castle.
I mean, of course, there's criticism saying, well, why weren't they there for Prince Philip's memorial? That was very high profile, of course. There were concerns about security that the couple had. So maybe doing a secret visit is the way they could bypass some of that and make things a bit easier.
We think the children were not with them because, anyway, they're on the way to the Invictus Games, which is another good thing, I think. I'm very, very glad that Harry is still so closely tied to that because the whole thing was absolutely brilliant. But, I hope it could be the start of a building of a bridge.
Let's hope so. I think that would be quite nice. Let us know what you think.
I must say, I don't know about you, but the minute I heard that they had paid a secret visit, I thought, oh, what's wrong with the Queen?
Did you?
First thing I thought of, crumbs. Have they been told to get here fast? But I don't think there's any idea of that at all. I think
no.
I think they're just on their way to Holland, and they thought we'll pop into Windsor.
It was was it a week ago yesterday? She made that video call to the Royal London Hospital, and she looked absolutely radiant. Well,
apparently she likes doing that nowadays. She likes doing she's really into the tech now.
Well, feel free.
She thinks like I've got mobility issues. I can't move around as easily as I used to, so I'll Zoom everywhere.
I suppose she gets some assistance with it, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Anyway, so keep all your thoughts coming through. There's lots to talk about this Good Friday.
But most of all, we really want to hear where you are. If you're setting off, you know how it is early in the morning, Good Friday. You're determined to go somewhere with the family for Easter. Are you already packing stuff into the boot of the car? Have you researched your journey? Do you know that the road you're going along is going to be open or closed? We'll bring you up to date with the very latest news, of course. Yeah,
because millions of us are hitting the roads today. It's Good Friday, as we keep saying, so it is expected to be the busiest travel day of the Easter weekend. Train passengers are also being warned of further delays, because Network Rail are continuing work on multiple key lines across the UK.
Great day to do it. Airports are also expecting huge delays as the continued staffing shortages mean airline passengers are being advised to arrive for their flights 3 hours early.
Oh, grim. Well, let's get the very latest update for travel editor for The Independent, Simon Calder, who always knows what's going on. You look like you're at a train station this morning, Simon.
I am. London St Pancras International, Stephen, and good morning, Anne, as well.
Morning.
Yep, the hub for Brussels, for Amsterdam, for Paris. A really exciting day for Eurostar, which runs those trains, because it has got 14 services to Paris today, the most that it's run for 2 years. And just looking across, it's already very, very busy. I was here yesterday, actually, and I'd not seen crowds for any transport like it for a couple of years. Just over to my left, there's King's Cross Station, the hub for the East Coast Main Line from here to Yorkshire, to North East England, to Scotland, of course. And that is especially busy because about 500 metres up the road from here, if you know London geography, you've got Euston Station, completely closed all weekend. There are no trains going on the West Coast Main Line from here to the West Midlands, North West England and southern Scotland. That's closed for the usual Easter tradition of engineering works.
Is that what they normally do, engineering works, when there are fewer office workers, I suppose, fewer ordinary commuters?
Yes.
It just hits the families worse, doesn't it?
Well, it certainly does, and this is very, very pre-pandemic. And effectively, Network Rail did a survey in 2016. They concluded that, yep, the least painful way to organise really important rail engineering upgrade works was to do it over bank holiday weekends. They've got, 4 days clear because there aren't any commuters. Well, guess what? There aren't really any commuters anyway coming into London. That's all changed since the pandemic began. And I think we may find that this is the last Easter where you get a really major intercity rail line closing down. And I think we could actually see midweek closures instead, because exactly as you say, it's families, it's people going off to the seaside, whatever they're doing. They are wanting to do that at the weekend. They turn up at the station, there aren't any trains, they're going to be getting into their cars and adding to the congestion on the roads.
I sort of think if anyone's got a lot of sense today, they might just decide to stay at home, Simon. But if there are people desperate to get out, haven't really made plans or are a bit flexible, what would be your advice? Where could they go in a pretty easy sort of way over this weekend?
Well, look, I'll tell you what I'm doing, Stephen. I am staying local. I have my getaway. Now, obviously, unlike your lovely viewers, I don't really have a proper job, so I spend my entire life on holiday pretending to work. I got back late on Wednesday night, and I'm just going to be enjoying being out and about in London. But look, have a look at your local station. There probably will be trains running. The vast majority of trains are going to be running. Please, if you are thinking of driving, give it a second thought, because exactly as you say, today particularly is going to be the busiest day we've seen on the roads probably since 2019. Certainly well over 20 million leisure journeys over the weekend, and the busiest day is going to be today, followed by Easter Monday. And already we know where the congestion is going to be around the M25, particularly on the western side of London, parts of the M6 going north towards the Lake District, going south towards actually Stoke-on-Trent, which of course is close to Alton Towers and Drayton Manor Park, top theme parks there. And then the A303 in the Stonehenge area, where everything gums up with people from London heading to Devon and Cornwall.
I just wondered if there's any idea of setting off really, really late at night or very early in the morning to get anywhere. Does that work on trains and planes?
Not so much on trains and planes. I mean, we have got, by the way, I'm counting 68 cancellations on British Airways today to and from Heathrow, 30 cancellations on EasyJet to and from Gatwick Airport. Those, the airlines say, were made slightly in advance, so people should know about that. No, it's driving. That's the key. So if you have got a long journey to make, well, we're 6:10 now. Oh, dear. Stephen and Anne, I'm going to have to say, get in your car and start now, but that is going to rather scupper their enjoyment of your excellent programme. So why not wait until maybe 4 or 5 in the afternoon? That's when most people will have set off, and you should have a fairly smooth journey to your destination. But of course, breakdowns, accidents, that can gum up the whole road system all too easily.
Oh, can't
Yeah, but I tell you what, Simon, we will just educate you the other way around for once. You don't have to leave us behind if you're getting into the car. You can take the GBNews app on your phone or tablet or whatever, and you can play us in your car. So you can take us all the way with you.
Oh, of course, on DAB Plus radio, Simon.
Of course, yes. That too.
Yeah,
there you go.
But life is complete, Stephen.
It is, it is.
We know you'll be tuned in every minute of every day now. Simon Calder, really good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, that is crucial. Take us with. But if you are going to be stuck on one of those long journeys, the kids might not always want the radio on.
No.
If you've got little ones. So what do you do?
Car games, that's what you do. I spy. No, well, I don't know what car games we do.
We used to do, because my mum was a primary school teacher, so I was used to dealing with the youngsters, and it was always how many red cars could you see?
Yeah.
How many fire engines can you see? All that sort of thing.
Yes.
But I think she was more into it than we were.
Yeah, I used to put tape of nursery rhymes and things like that, or really, nice popular music or something on for sound, and then just have a big box of Lego in the back.
Oh.
Lego everywhere, and would build things on the way. And if you really wanted to make the journey really work, we'd keep them ever so quiet in the back, because I had one of those big people movers. You had get a couple of boxes of new Lego, so they've never actually built it before,
right.
and then say, right, the first one to build their Lego gets an ice cream or something like that. I used to keep them quiet for hours.
Oh, well, there you go. Any little hints and tips you've got for dealing with the kids in the car? Just round the next corner. Are we nearly there yet?
Are we nearly there yet?
And GBViews at gbnews.uk.
Love to hear from you.
Let's bring you up to date with the top stories then at 12 minutes past 6, and the Prime Minister wants the first flight carrying migrants to leave for Rwanda next month. Yesterday, the Prime Minister confirmed asylum seekers who are deemed to have entered the UK illegally, including on small boats, will be flown thousands of miles away for processing. He said the deal, worth £120 million, will serve as a considerable deterrent.
Russian state media has reported that the warship Moskva sank in the Black Sea as it was being towed back to port following an explosion. The Ukrainian military said it hit the Soviet-era flagship with 2 anti-ship missiles, causing serious damage.
And the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have met in secret with the Queen at Windsor Castle. This was yesterday. Harry and Meghan, who've not been in the UK together since they quit as senior royals more than 2 years ago, are also thought to have met the Prince of Wales. The couple made the visit ahead of their appearance at the Invictus Games in the Netherlands later on. Is it this month or next month?
Next month? April? We're in April now.
We're in April. I've totally lost track of where we are and what we're doing.
Yeah, me too. I couldn't tell you what day it is today, except that it's Good Friday.
It's Good Friday. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know.
Now, have you heard the goss? Elon Musk has made an audacious shock bid to buy the entirety of Twitter for £33 billion. The billionaire announced that he had recently bought under 10% of the company, making him the largest shareholder.
Yes. Now, Mr. Musk, however, declined an offer of a seat on the management board, prompting speculation over his plans for the social media company. In a letter to Twitter's chair, Musk said the company was not thriving for improving freedom of speech and needs to be transformed as a private company.
Yeah, but how does his bid help the push for free speech? Let's speak to former senior military intelligence officer and cyber expert, Philip Ingram, MBE. Hello there, Philip. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
He's made this offer of 33, did I say billion or million? Billion, yeah.
Billion, yes.
Which seems incredibly high. Why is he so keen to get his hands on it?
Well, it's interesting, because Twitter's free for all of us to use, and we're all over it. So, it must be worth something to him. And the thing that it's worth is us. It's our personal details. It's our contact details. It's everything about us. And that shows the power that there is within social media platforms, and therefore the value that entrepreneurs and billionaires like Elon Musk put on it. And we have to realize that as the users of the platform and any free platform, we are the commodity.
It's interesting, though, isn't it, that he's going under the guise of free speech. I mean, whereas everyone else, including the UK government, is looking at, well, not how to lock down Twitter, but how to remove some pretty awful stuff that appears on there.
It is, and again, with all of the platforms, free speech depends on who's looking at it. We heard the Russians yesterday saying that their cruiser or battleship that was attacked in the war with Ukraine hadn't sunk, and then overnight we hear it sunk. The manipulation of information and what we're getting is huge, and this is why we have to sit and question who actually owns these platforms and how are they being controlled. The government is looking at this, and as part of the online harms bill that they're going to bring out probably next year. Looking at the parliamentary timelines, they're going to try and make sure that there are better controls in place for what can be put and what can't be put. But then there'll be accusations of that being censorship. Again, we have to be careful of what the government can control, but we also have to be careful of what billionaires like Elon Musk can control.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got a picture, I think, of the tweet that he himself put out. I made an offer. There it is. That's all he said. I made an offer. It's pretty clear. But yeah, he has himself used Twitter and raised some eyebrows about the things he's said on Twitter. It's not so much free speech, it's whether or not he would be responsibly free with his speech.
Well, exactly, and he's used Twitter to manipulate things. I remember earlier on this year, or could have been at the end of last year, he turned around and talked about using Bitcoin to buy his cars and enabling that, and the price of Bitcoin went up hugely. And then all of a sudden, he turned around and said, "Oh, I don't like Bitcoin anymore. I'm going to follow this other coin and allow that to be used." And Bitcoin dropped, and the other coin went up. And the cynic in me would say he was doing that just to manipulate the market, so he could make even more money on what he was doing because he was investing in these different coins and influencing the prices. He's an influencer, and the question is, should an influencer have the ability to control platforms that can, at best, try and suggest the way people would think, at worst manipulate the way people could think? And there's very good research out there to show that you using fake news, using propaganda, using different techniques, you can manipulate the way people think, and therefore the potential influence that has on elections and other things. It's a big area that we need to sort of sit and think about.
We are heading into a time, aren't we, where, in a sense, because intelligence is power, well, we seem to be heading to a time where there's a lot of intelligence in a very small number of hands. And you look at, Jeff Bezos, Apple as a company, Microsoft as a company, and people like Elon Musk as well. Is that something that should alarm us?
Alarm is a difficult word. It's something we need to be aware of. And, I don't think people understand what the power of the digital world is at the moment. And they don't understand their own personal exposures in it. And that leaves people vulnerable. And at the end of the day, it's people, it's individuals that are the commodity. And there's very good evidence of how social media, how different platforms are used to try and manipulate people's thinkings. And we've heard the accusations of the Russians interfering in the US elections, in the EU elections, in the Brexit referendum. We've seen the debacle with Cambridge Analytica using big data, and that shows the power of what someone who owns a platform like that, if they've got an agenda, and we don't know what Elon Musk's agenda is apart from to make more money, then we have to be very, very careful indeed about the power that they have over the content on that. And I know the government are looking at this.
I mean, it was ever thus. Rich businessmen, moguls, have always sought to buy newspapers, haven't they, for these same reasons. I guess the difference is now something like Twitter is bigger than the circulation of any newspaper, but it's also global. But also, it does, as you said at the beginning, it contains our information a lot of the time.
They have, and it's fascinating. You know, it goes back into the power of information. And if you look at the power of information, let's go back to the Second World War. You know, we had the ministries in the government controlled information, but they controlled what the BBC put out, which was the only broadcaster. They controlled what went into the newspapers, and it was all part of propaganda. It was all part of the war effort. However, you know, that went through a relatively small number of people. There was a degree of control, and there's a degree of oversight from the courts, and it was small outputs. Now we've got things instantaneously coming through on our phones and on other devices where you can hit anyone. You know, I can interact with a government minister instantly. You could never do that beforehand, and therefore the power that's come with the internet and with our connectivity is massive. And we saw Donald Trump's ability to stir up a crowd and attack the seat of democracy in the United States whenever we had the Senate being stormed at the end of his presidency, and you know that then led to people dying. We have to recognise that information is very, very powerful today, and we need to know who's controlling it and why they're controlling it and what they're going to do with it.
Indeed. I was just going to think, when President Trump lost the last election, it was said that he was going to, and then he was biffed off Twitter, wasn't he? It was said that he was going to go away and form a social media platform of his own. We haven't heard anything there, though, have we?
Well, he tried, didn't he?
Did he?
He tried, but he sort of didn't work out.
Well,
but it just shows that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah, exactly, and but he has shown that the power of information and the power of influence, and it's all about influence. And influence whenever you've got a relatively small number of outlets. 100 years ago is controlled, but influence now, where you've got instantaneous outputs, and people get feel as if they have a need to respond instantaneously. It changes opinion, and it's too easy to manipulate people's opinion. A few years ago it was called advertising, it was called marketing. Now it's influence.
Philip, really good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, that's something called from the desk of Donald J. Trump.
Yes, that's right.
There's a comedian out there on YouTube who I like very much, who calls him Donald Jessica Trump, and every time Jessica is just in my head now with Trump, which I'm sure he wouldn't be very happy with, would he?
So he tried to get a social media platform going, but it didn't work.
No. And it just sort of dropped. So he's sort of looking at another one now. But I mean, I just know if there's the appetite there for it, because that really would be an echo chamber around
really
anything that he set up. But isn't it interesting about our information? You hear it a bit more with Facebook and things. And it's why I'm not on Facebook. I don't do Facebook for those reasons.
It's interesting that Elon Musk wants to buy Twitter, because I understand from my children, who are now grown up, but you know what I mean, that they're that generation, they don't use Twitter.
No, it's Instagram.
They see that as passé. Yeah.
It's all Instagram.
It's all Instagram now.
So it's...
So why would Elon Musk, who's usually ahead of the curve on these things, why would he be seeking to buy something that maybe is going to,
reinvent it? What could he do with it? That's the thing. I know you always
He's a very clever man.
You always used to look at things and you see, how popular is someone? I look at their Twitter followers.
Yeah.
And then now, if you look at like pop stars and things, they might have a few, but you go to their Instagram page and they've got millions. So it's all about the imagery.
Still haven't got me. And TikTok's the other one.
TikTok. I don't understand TikTok.
Oh, I'm glad you don't, because I don't either.
No.
Can't get my head around that, but that's how the youngsters communicate now.
GBNews is on TikTok.
What do we do on
Little
TikTok?
clips of things.
Oh, I see.
And they get...
I was going to say, what have they got us doing on TikTok?
They get big numbers.
Oh.
Big numbers. So you can find us on TikTok, but
We'll have to do a course.
I do not understand TikTok. I have tried looking at it, and it's all just people doing really stupid things. I don't understand it.
Well, that's what we do nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah.
However, I can get my head around the GBNews app. So that one I can do, and I do recommend that, because that's good fun. And you can take it anywhere, as we were saying. But you've still got to educate me on Instagram. I can't even get my head around that.
Instagram, it's a weird one. Useful, though. It's for the youth. Okay. It is 6:24. We're going to take a short break, because we've got plenty more still to come, including A good look at the new plan to send illegal migrants to Rwanda within 6 weeks. Now, do you think that's a good idea or not? Let us know
your
what you think.
views. First of all, though, your Easter weekend weather.
Hello there, I'm Stephen Keats and I've got your latest Met Office forecast for you. The Easter weekend, not looking too bad for most of us. Some warmth to be had, 1 or 2 showers, but as we go on through the weekend, progressively turning a bit more unsettled from the west. But for this morning, though, high pressure still hanging firm to the east of the UK, and that will exert an influence across much of the country, actually. These weather fronts not really making much inroads from the west. That said, though, for parts of Wales, southwest England, a bit damp, drizzly first thing this morning, some mist and murk around the coasts. Quite cloudy for Northern Ireland and the far west of Scotland too, and this is how it will remain for much of the day. Further east, though, that's where we're going to see the best of the sunshine. The cloud tended to bubble up through the afternoon and 1 or 2 showers possible across eastern England. Across Northern Ireland, though, if we do see a bit of brightness developing, we could see a few heavier, perhaps thundery showers this afternoon. 14 degrees there in Belfast. Contrast that with a warm 22 degrees in London, so likely to be the warmest day of the year. Showers across Northern Ireland then will tend to fizzle out through the evening, but 1 or 2 breaking out across parts of Northern England into southern Scotland. These will push their way further north this evening into Saturday morning to sit across eastern Scotland for the first part of Saturday. Elsewhere, though, it is a drier picture. Variable amounts of clouds and mist and murk returning to some southern and western coasts, probably clearest towards eastern England. And here, the lowest temperatures, 6 or 7 Celsius. So not a particularly cold start to Saturday then. Quite a bit of cloud around for some of us, some sunshine for others, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. Southern and western coast a bit grey and misty. On the whole, this will tend to burn back in to the coast, and even here I think we'll see some sunny spells at times for the day. But the best of the sunshine, for the most part, will be inland with some fair weather cloud bubbling up, maybe the odd shower. And again, reasonable warmth to be had, 18 to 20 degrees, perhaps not quite as high as what we'll see today, but still pretty good for the time of year. So Saturday set fair then, the odd shower possible, on the whole some sunshine, progressively turning a bit cloudier, a bit cool, a bit wetter as we move through Sunday and Monday. And as it does so, those temperatures will come back down to the mid-teens. Take care.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning to you. It is 6:29. You're watching or listening, and listening.
Hopefully both,
to
yes.
Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. Yes, who knows? Because we're on your TV, on your radio, and online.
Yeah.
So if you are getting stuck in Easter traffic today, you don't
Happy
have to miss a
Easter.
thing. Yes, you don't have to miss a thing.
As you're sitting in the car there with screaming children in the back, you know, happy Easter.
Mark says, I'm cabin crew and today I'm heading to Heathrow for my flight to Delhi at 4 o'clock. Normally I'd set off at 2. Today I'm leaving at midday because I know the M25 is going to be a nightmare.
Yes.
Happy Easter to you both and wish me luck. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
I need it.
Sue says, "Dear Anne and Stephen and the team working on the show," that's the team back there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Happy Easter. Thank you for doing a great show. Watching Anne and Stephen in the morning is just the tonic I need. Oh, we're having lots of nice comments about your ties.
Yes.
Not only your ties, but the way you tie them.
Oh, yes. Now, how do you tie a nice tie? This is Fergus says, "Stephen, you really uses good ties and ties them to perfection." This actually is a very old tie that someone gave me as a gift about 20 years ago.
It's really
but it is
nice.
a lovely tie,
It
isn't
is.
it? That's why
Who taught you how to do your ties?
Well, my dad taught me how to do a tie, but not this one. And I'm one of these people. I don't, gents, if you're out there, when you learn how to tie a tie, you can't ever remember. If you learn a new way to do it, you can't remember the old
No,
way.
it has to be something that you
It's like
almost
muscle,
do
it's
without
like
thinking.
muscle memory. No, not so the same way do a demo. No, because it's get makeup all over my collar. But this is I think this is a double Windsor, which someone on Twitter messaged me and said years ago and said you should do a double Windsor. They're much nicer, and sent me a link to a YouTube video on how to do it.
That's one thing YouTube is brilliant at. I must say things like that.
And once you
but
get
I just wondered if it was a thing almost.
Oh.
Whether your military
Other half
man,
teaches
your
me,
other
no.
half, has taught you how. Because
No.
my son, who's in the military, he ties them like that too.
Does he?
The double whammy. It keeps going round. And I just wondered if you're taught to do that in the army.
It sort of goes in both sides.
That's right,
and then
yeah.
you get the symmetry. And it looks complicated when you first see the video. Once you get the hang of it, it's dead easy. I do it with my eyes shut now.
Interesting, isn't
and
it?
it always forms a nice... By the time you pull the collar down, it always looks really
it sits
nice.
nicely as well, doesn't it?
Oh, look at that.
But it also has the little clifty bit there,
Yes.
which is nice.
Yeah.
See, it's lovely.
There you go. So there you
I
go.
just wondered if it's a military thing, but clearly not. Well, maybe
No.
not. I don't know.
No, don't know.
Do you get taught how to tie a tie in the military?
Probably. They get taught how to have showers and wash and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and you get taught how to hang things neatly in the wardrobe. Couldn't believe it.
How to iron the creases in the right place.
Yeah, they have to just be like that, hanging like that in the wardrobe. It looks perfect.
I'm not allowed to iron uniforms.
No,
Because
well,
I can't-
it's something they have to do themselves, don't they?
Because I don't get the lines in the right
No,
place.
exactly. And anyway, I think a soldier should do it, him or herself, don't
Yes.
you? Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Works for me.
What interesting things
There's
we end
me
up
doing
talking
it.
about in the morning.
Talking military, and because of course Harry was, well, they've all served in the military. Harry was in the Blues and Rolls, actually, household cavalry. Robert says, visiting the Queen, Harry and Meghan, was too late and all for show. They probably realised how unimportant they're becoming to the British public now.
I don't think it was for show. It was
No.
secret. It was only because they were spotted that we know it at all.
Yeah, I would disagree with you on that. I mean, I know where you're coming from, Robert. I do, but I think it was meant to be a secret, private visit, which I think is in and of itself is nice. To go and see Grandma.
Yes, very important too. Yeah.
Yeah, she's the Queen.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, moving on, the Prime Minister has unveiled his new plan for tackling illegal immigration.
Male migrants that reach the UK on small boats across the Channel will be flown to Rwanda whilst their asylum claims are processed.
Well, our Home and Security editor Mark White has been to Kent with the Prime Minister to look at their proposals.
Entering Dover Harbour, the all-too-familiar sight of yet another Border Force vessel arriving here packed with would-be asylum seekers. Hundreds of people pulled from small boats in the middle of the English Channel. 28,500 last year alone, and already this year it's clear that record is set to be smashed. The Prime Minister, deeply frustrated by his government's inability to stem the flow of small boats, is now putting himself front and centre of those efforts, travelling to Kent to meet the teams at the sharp end, as the Royal Navy takes over command and control of Channel operations. And in a major shift of policy, the announcement that most of those who arrive here illegally will be sent on a one-way journey to Rwanda after that African nation agreed a multi-million-pound deal with the UK.
Our new migration and economic development partnership will mean that anyone entering the UK illegally, as well as those who have arrived illegally since January the 1st, may now be relocated to Rwanda. This innovative approach driven by our shared humanitarian impulse and made possible by Brexit freedoms, will provide safe and legal routes for asylum.
4,000 miles from the UK, the Home Secretary was in the Rwandan capital to see the first in a series of new accommodation blocks being prepared to house the asylum seekers. Those sent here will be processed, and if they're granted asylum, their new life will be in this country. They won't be allowed to settle in the UK. The government is not planning to send women, children or indeed married men to Rwanda, only single males. But that's still the vast majority of those arriving by small boats. Last year, 70% of small boat arrivals were single men. UK authorities are now operating a fleet of these drones over the Channel, and from today the Royal Navy takes over command of Channel operations. In the weeks ahead, these drones will be joined by Navy Wildcat helicopters and a fleet of new patrol boats. Human rights groups have already condemned the plans to send asylum seekers to Rwanda as cruel and inhumane. But one Border Force former senior manager believes it's the right thing to do.
Now they won't want to get into the hands of UK authorities because they won't want to go offshore to Rwanda. So the Navy will be able to intercept those people that don't want to be intercepted.
Any move to send asylum seekers to Rwanda could still be some way off, as it's inevitable human rights groups will seek to challenge it in the courts. In the meantime, as hundreds continue to arrive by small boat daily, the government says it's also planning to house asylum seekers in purpose-built accommodation centres, rather than spending the estimated £5 million a day to put them up in hotels across the country. Mark White, GB News, Kent.
And thanks very much to Mark White for that report. It's something that there's going to be continued debate about. You can imagine salvos being fired from all ends, can't you say? People saying it's never going to work. In fact, people were telling us on yesterday's programme, it won't work, it won't work, it didn't work in Australia. And other people with equally loud voices saying it will work, it's the only thing that can work, and it did work in Australia. And there are polls already being done saying whether or not this is a good a popular move with the British public.
I think it was 57%. It was a YouGov poll. I think it was 57% said no.
They didn't They didn't like the idea. They thought it was inhumane.
But certainly from what we were getting yesterday, I mean, we were under the impression it's a vote winner. Let us know what you think. GBViews at gbnews.uk. When it comes to military ties, they do a small tie, size of a thumbnail, no flute, which I think is that bit.
That's the flute. And that's what a military tie
is. A military tie
is. Well, I prefer yours.
Thank you, so do I.
There you go. Do stay with us. We've got plenty more to come, including a look at the morning's papers, so don't go away.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Oh, it's 6:40. Very good morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne, live across the UK on your TV, your radio and online.
Yes, it's time to go through the papers now. So joining us this morning, Chief Executive of Demos think tank and former advisor to Nick Clegg, Polly Mackenzie, and joining us also author and academic Joanna Williams. Have I got that right?
Yes.
Good.
Have.
Thank you. Because I wasn't sure about the spellings.
All right.
Right. Well, who are we starting with? Joanna. Yes, we're talking about the Rwanda migrants, of course, again, and whether or not anyone thinks it's a humane policy and whether it's going to work as well.
Well, those are very, very big questions. And on the surface, this is a completely kind of madcap idea of shipping people back across over to Africa, back to over to Rwanda. It's obviously been very, very widely criticised. You'll see in lots of the newspapers today, there's some very heavy criticisms being levied at this. People are pointing out the inhumanity of treating people this way. But I would argue we do need to think carefully about solutions to this problem. We've got record numbers of people coming over on small boats through the channel in that way. It's a deadly trade. You know, people are putting their lives at risk by entering on these small boats. And a lot of the criticisms are not actually putting forward solutions to this problem.
This is as much as anything else, this is what people don't focus on, is this is a deterrent.
Well, exactly. And two other things I think are really worth pointing out. One is that the UK is not the first country in Europe to use offshore processing for migrants. Denmark has proposals in place to send migrants outside of the EU for processing. And actually, the EU itself has been paying Libya money for years now to hold detention centres hosting migrants to stop people coming across the Mediterranean to enter the EU in the first place. And you look at some of those conditions in those camps in Libya, I mean, they are absolutely appalling. Whereas many of the critics of this scheme now of shipping people back to Rwanda, you know, very rarely have much to say about those camps in Libya or about what's going on in Denmark.
So, I mean, so the reality is with this, Polly, criticism there might be, we're actually a bit slow off the mark.
Well, I think it's important to be clear that we're not proposing to offshore refugee processing.
No.
We're proposing to send people to go and claim asylum in Rwanda. And that's quite different from the idea that you process people and then accept their claim if they're found, so that you don't have to have people onshore and the hassle of removing failed asylum seekers. And the government's been quite ambiguous about that, but the reality is this is not offshoring. It's telling people you can't claim asylum here because you arrived on a boat. You have to claim asylum in Rwanda, completely different country, other side of the world. I think that there's no question that everything, basically, that happens to refugees is inhumane. You're absolutely true that lots of refugee camps are incredibly difficult environments for people, that people trafficking is an abhorrent crime which exploits some of the most vulnerable people in the world. And what disappoints me is that there's so little attempt to actually think about the whole system of what's going wrong in the world here. I would like to see Britain show some leadership of that kind. The reality is about 10 million people flee their home because of war or persecution every year, and that's going to be higher this year because of Ukraine. And this country is a brilliant country that lots of people want to come to because we have a really diverse population. We need to think about, what does refugee settlement look like in an unstable world? How do we allow as many people as possible to stay close to their country of origin? And how do we allow safe routes for people who have a legitimate tie to the UK to come here? That's how you deal with people traffickers, not taking a couple of 10,000 people, moving them over to Rwanda to be another client group for people traffickers, which is precisely what happened when Israel used Rwanda as a place to send their asylum seekers. Is they all just got straight back in on the buses and the coaches and the trains and straight up to North Africa to try and claim again.
I think certainly there are global problems, but ultimately in Britain we can only deal with the situation as we have it in Britain.
A third of the population of Lebanon is a refugee, right?
Absolutely.
Like, so the scale of the problem
A third
for
of
us,
the population is
absolutely massive.
But if national borders are to mean anything
Completely
at all,
agree.
then we do have to actually defend our national borders. You know, otherwise we're just saying, well, it's a free-for-all. I think we also need to have a lot more honesty in the debate. So you're saying, Polly, that lots of people want to come here because of the diversity of our population. I think actually a lot of people want to come here because we have a good economy as well, and there are plentiful work opportunities for people. And I think actually if people are fleeing persecution, then Rwanda is a safe country at the moment. You know, Rwanda is not a war zone. And if people are economic migrants, then I think you're right. People will be desperate and carry on persevering to come here. But kind of sometimes we dress this debate up as if everybody's fleeing a war, and that's absolutely not the case. I think we do need to acknowledge that there are a large proportion.
How are we going to decide?
70% of those who cross the Channel have their asylum claim found as successful. So, of course, there are economic migrants, and I completely agree that everything about those channel crossings is horrific and it needs to be prevented. But my view is that you prevent that by having safe routes at a global level. We all need to take our responsibility. We're a rich country.
But come on, you couldn't even agree with the French on how to cope with everybody in Calais.
No, that's because we've decided that we don't like the French anymore, and we want to, and because we've got this idea that if once you're in France, you shouldn't be allowed to come to the United Kingdom, even though France has more refugees per head of the population than we have. Understandably, I think the French feel that that's a bit unfair.
But it is a bit idealistic, especially at the moment, isn't it? Expecting countries to agree on how to deal with refugees worldwide.
But what's the alternative?
An immediate decision like this.
Well, yeah, but the alternative is actually designing a system to cope with the reality that about 10 million people are displaced every year. Like,
it ain't going to happen, is it? I mean, let's be realistic.
Well, why not?
That ain't going to happen.
The United Kingdom, they managed to torch it up, but started to put together a global campaign under our Global Britain banner on LGBT rights. Yeah? Trying to get global leadership, trying to take our position and our values and make the case for other people to do that. We hosted COP26, trying to get other countries to agree to a better system for managing climate change. We have trade conferences all the time. Why can't we actually start a process of collaboration between nations to work out who should take these challenges?
COP26 went really well.
Well, yeah, it was actually.
It's not achieving immediate. But it's not achieving immediate change, and it wouldn't here. We need something to happen immediately.
Okay, so at a cost, we absolutely do. Personally, I would prioritise a deal with France over this, which I think is just going to be ruinously expensive.
But I think the problem
is loads
of deals have been done with France already, and it's clearly not changed anything because
we don't offer any safe routes. We've taken a view, and others will share that.
But what about listening to
We've taken a view that if you're in France, you shouldn't be allowed to come to the United
people on
Kingdom.
this one? And with this is what this government was meant to be about, wasn't it? Listening to the people. Leslie says Boris has made a brilliant decision. Morning, Leslie. We watched his speech and the live video. We can't keep the illegal immigrant. We can't let the illegal immigration continue the way it is. Philip says, I like this plan of sending them to Rwanda for processing. If it stops the people traffickers making money, it's good.
I think the problem with your suggestion, Polly, about making these international global treaties is it actually takes this decision about migration away from the British public. And if we think of Britain as a democratic nation state, it should be for the people of Britain to decide who comes to live here or who doesn't come to live here. And I think the situation in Ukraine has shown that the British people are actually incredibly compassionate when it comes to migration. But if you suggest some kind of global treaty, we no longer have the power to make those those decisions in this country, and that's why I'd really object to it. It should be a national decision. It should be
a national decision to take our share of, a fundamental problem. If you're a rich country, America has this, a rich country near a poor country has the constant pressure of migration.
We're not near a poor country, we're near France and Ireland.
But we are surrounded by a world in which there is huge amounts of conflict. And absolutely, we should be making our decisions about who to take. We should be making our decisions about how you contribute to reducing conflict, to economic development, and to managing safe routes. But my view is that you will reduce the pressure of people trafficking if you provide safe routes and if you provide much more support than I think we do to those countries which neighbour war zones or disaster zones or famine areas and enable them to accommodate refugees, because most refugees want to stay close to their country of origin because they have aspirations to stay at home.
That's going to involve long-term funding, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas the idea about
we're a rich country in an unstable world.
This might be expensive in the short term, but the idea is if it does act as a deterrent, then it's not going to necessarily be a long term.
But the fact is, we're never going to level up the economy of every single country in the world. I mean, that's an incredibly idealistic statement that you've come out with there. There will always be rich countries and poor people.
Can I just say,
there will always be people in poor countries who want to leave to go to rich.
Let's leave that at the moment, because we are going to obviously have to revisit later on, and just ask you very, very quickly. Partygate fatigue. 2 in 3 people want to move on from Partygate.
God, I'd love to move on from Partygate, but I think that you do that by actually admitting mistakes, not trying to pretend that the only thing that went wrong was a 9-minute cake in a Tupperware container.
They've apologised, haven't they?
Well, they apologised, but then also sent out lots of briefing that, it wasn't me, Gov, it's really unfair, the Metropolitan Police. I think that the reality is that the culture is set from the top and the Prime Minister wasn't interested in understanding the rules that he passed. Extraordinary measures to restrain our freedom, very controversial, and he didn't know he was breaking them because he didn't bother to read and learn the rules that he had imposed on other people.
OK, you want to move on from Partygate, but you're still talking about it.
Yes.
And Joanna, do you want to move on from Partygate?
I desperately want to move on from Partygate, and the reason why I want to move on from Partygate is that it wasn't really the parties that were the problem, it was the rules that were the problem. You had the Labour Party standing up in Parliament begging the government to go further. You had journalists in those press briefings begging the government to go further, and now people are turning around and saying, oh, but it was the parties that were the problem. Do you know what? It wasn't the fact that Boris was having a party in Downing Street that stopped people attending funerals, seeing sick relatives in hospital. It was the rules. And I would love it if all the people who are now so busy criticising the hypocrisy of Partygate had been so vocal at the time to criticise the inhumanity of those rules that we were all expected to live under, and they weren't.
We've got to leave it there. Joanna Williams, Polly Mackenzie, thank you both. Catch up a little bit later on.
It's 6:52, very nearly. It's now time for On Your Doorstep.
So on your doorstep today is GB News Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley, who's in beautiful Selby. Morning, Anna. Oh, she's
you're
on the
phone. Anna, you're on.
You're on. Talk to us, Anna. Oh, well.
No,
we've lost the connection. Well, she is on a doorstep. But she just doesn't realise that we want to talk to her about it.
I don't know Selby, but apparently it is a beautiful place.
Very close to York, of course.
Well,
I know it because my auntie and uncle moved there from Cumbria quite a few years ago. Although they live in Wales now. But there you go. But it is Selby is beautiful. Are you there, Anna?
No, she can't hear us. Oh, what a shame. I wanted to see what Selby was like this time in the morning, because apparently it's going to be great weather today.
Oh, she's there!
We got her. Hello,
Morning.
Anna.
Good morning. Yes, I'm live in Selby this morning, historical market town, well known for its abbey. And we've popped by the local butchers, like you say. Lovely weekend we're set for, and I bet there'll be plenty of people barbecuing, as well as having traditional Easter lamb as well. So let's knock on here at the butchers and have a word with them this morning. Good morning. You're live on GB News TV and radio. We're right to pop in and have a word?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Oh, you've got plenty on store here. What have we got? I can see we've just mentioning barbecues then. Plenty of skewers here for me.
lots of different skewers, lots of different flavours. We are known to sell a lot of different flavours. Barbecue season is absolutely crackers. Yeah, obviously Easter, so it's going to be really, really busy.
Just introduce yourself for us.
I'm Dan, I'm the manager. My sidekick is somewhere through there. Yeah.
What are you expecting this Easter then, customer-wise? And is lamb one of the traditional dishes that you'll be selling as well as this barbecue food that you've got here?
It is, yeah. Obviously, with it being hot as well, it's hot, Easter, bank holiday, it's going to be bits of everything. Lots of lamb, lots and lots of lamb.
And what have you noticed in terms of custom? Obviously, we've had the cost of living crisis that's just ongoing. People are really feeling the pinch in their pockets. Have you seen people buying less meat or more people going to supermarkets for deals rather than coming to the traditional butchers?
Personally, I think within a year or so there'll be no such thing as cheap. So that's going to drive a lot of places to have to sell it at the right price and the high price of what it should be. We have a lot of loyal customers that sometimes come daily, they sometimes come 2 or 3 times per week. Footfall has dropped slightly, but that's all the shops. It's not just the butchering trade. We tick over. It's some days are better than others. It's hit and miss. There's no consistency with your days no more. Before you could have been busy on a Friday, busy on a Saturday. Now it can be you're busy on Wednesday, Thursday, you're slightly quieter on a Friday, Saturday. There's just no consistency with it.
And just tell me a little bit about your prices. Have you had to hike them up, and what kind of a price increase have you seen that you may have had to pass on to customers?
We've seen things increasing by 20p, 40p, 50p, £1 a kilo. We've kept it as low for as long as we could, but certain things rose to the point where we had to bite the bullet and increase it. But we've only increased it the amount that it's gone up to us to the custom. We haven't added anything else on, just that bit.
And in terms of buying British, can it be more expensive for the customer to buy British meat?
It can. Certain things we tend to try and cater for both sets of custom, the people that want the cheap deals or the people that want the nice Yorkshire. Like I said, we cater for both. The prices, you can pay a bit more for English or local, but it is what it is.
Yes, it is what it is.
Oh, there you go.
Absolutely. We've got to leave you there. Thanks very much to both of you.
Out of time.
They're talking and talking and talking, but it's going to be good weather today. Are you planning a barbecue?
Here's the forecast.
Hello there, I'm Stephen Keats and I've got your latest Met Office forecast for you. The Easter weekend, not looking too bad for most of us. Some warmth to be had, 1 or 2 showers, but as we go on through the weekend, progressively turning a bit more unsettled from the west. But for this morning, though, high pressure still hanging firm to the east of the UK, and that will exert an influence across much of the country, actually. These weather fronts not really making much inroads from the west. That said, though, for parts of Wales, southwest England, a bit damp, drizzly first thing this morning, some mist and murk around the coasts. Quite cloudy for Northern Ireland and the far west of Scotland, too. And this is how it will remain for much of the day. Further east, though, that's where we're going to see the best of the sunshine. The cloud tended to bubble up through the afternoon and 1 or 2 showers possible across eastern England. Across Northern Ireland, though, if we do see a bit of brightness developing, we could see a few heavier, perhaps thundery showers this afternoon. 14 degrees there in Belfast. Contrast that with quite a warm 22 degrees in London, so likely to be the warmest day of the year. Showers across Northern Ireland then will tend to fizzle out through the evening, but 1 or 2 breaking out across parts of Northern England into southern Scotland. These will push their way further north this evening into Saturday morning to sit across eastern Scotland for the first part of Saturday. Elsewhere, though, it is a drier picture. Variable amounts of clouds and mist and murk returning to some southern and western coasts, probably clearest towards eastern England. And here, the lowest temperatures, 6 or 7 Celsius. So not a particularly cold start to Saturday then. Quite a bit of cloud around for some of us, some sunshine for others, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. Southern and western coast a bit grey and misty. On the whole, this will tend to burn back in to the coast, and even here I think it will see some sunny spells at times for the day. But the best of the sunshine For the most part, we'll be inland with some fair weather cloud bubbling up, maybe the odd shower. And again, reasonable warmth to be had, 18 to 20 degrees, perhaps not quite as high as what we'll see today, but still pretty good for the time of year. So Saturday set fair, then the odd shower possible, on the whole some sunshine, progressively turning a bit cloudier, a bit cool, a bit wetter as we move through Sunday and Monday. And as it does so, those temperatures will come back down to the mid-teens. Take care.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Oh, you get us twice this morning. The Great British Getaway. Millions of Brits expected on the roads this Good Friday, and what's predicted to be the busiest travel day of the year. What are you going to be doing today?
You're going to be in that jam.
Ugh.
Meanwhile, rail passengers have been warned of delays to their journeys as Network Rail carries out a number of engineering works.
Good morning to you. It is 7:01 on the 15th of April, Good Friday. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
Now, if you're getting behind the wheel this morning, then don't forget you can take us with you, because we're also on the radio. We're on DAB+, and you can take us on your app as well on your phone, so we can keep you up to date with what you need to know if you're going to avoid those traffic jams.
Yes, and now Harry and Meghan have flown to the UK. They held a secret meeting with the Queen at Windsor ahead of their appearance at the Invictus Games in The Hague. We'll tell you more in a moment.
The Prime Minister wants to see the first migrants processed in Rwanda within 6 weeks as part of a scheme to curb channel crossings.
And it is 33 years to the day from the Hillsborough disaster, where now it's known that 97 men, women and children lost their lives. We'll speak to a survivor later on in the programme. And to mark the anniversary, the Liverpool Lighthouse Choir have recorded Abide With Me.
Abide with me, fast falls the eventide.
Abide With Me always gets your heartstrings going, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
Especially when it's sung so beautifully like that. But my goodness, there are certain hymns, certain tunes that you just, don't know why.
So, but isn't it interesting? They're beautiful, but they're painful. And those are all this sort of pain attached with them, really.
Beautiful words as well.
Now, don't forget to get in touch this morning. Loads of you getting in touch on the Rwanda issue. And despite what one of our paper reviewers was saying, she was sort of arguing against it, really. A lot of you seem to be really for it. Stephen says, good morning, Anne and Stephen. We'd just like to say, well done, Boris. We can't have carried on with the influx of migrants, so these are asylum seekers, it's slightly different, which, by the way, is costing us, the taxpayer, millions of pounds a day, which is true. We all know we paid France millions to help with this problem. We know how that turned out. Enough is enough.
Anthony says a simpler solution than deportation to Rwanda would be to end the gifting of free legal aid, free accommodation, free healthcare and free money for life for all arriving illegal migrants. If the UK's everything for free forever approach ended, the illegal immigrants would stop coming. I'm not sure about that, but
I'm not sure. The problem with that is, and this is where you are sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. If that happens, if those who do come over but don't get any help at all, well, they're just going to be living on the streets, aren't they?
Yes.
Which is obviously a problem in and of itself. And the last thing we want to do is exacerbate the homeless problem that we have in this country. So, I see your point, Anthony. I don't know if that's the right solution, though.
Alex says we do not have infinite resources to house asylum seekers. That's why we're asking people to house Ukrainians. I support the plan, and the critics never have an answer. They just criticise continually. They're completely out of touch with the wishes of the electorate. See, that's what's so interesting at the moment, is trying to see what your views are, because there is a report, I think it's a YouGov poll, which says that the majority of British people think that the Rwanda scheme is a shame and shouldn't be done and is inhumane. But I wonder how accurate that poll is. I mean, it's a proper professional poll, and us just sort of asking for your views on this isn't a sort of professional poll, but it'd be good to hear. It's not scientific, but it would be very good to hear your views.
Yeah, a drastic problem requires a drastic solution, says Julian. Boris Johnson is absolutely right to do this. It will save lives and benefit both countries. Anyway, keep your thoughts coming through. GBviews at gbnews.uk, especially if you want to say nice things, like Curtis. Morning, Curtis. Just want to say, what a great news channel. How you present the news is refreshing, and the discussions and how you challenge reports. You ask the questions we at home want to ask. That's our job.
That is our job. Thanks very much. But you can help us by asking your questions. GBviews at gbnews.uk. We were talking as well about the fact that obviously this is the Easter weekend. It's Good Friday. A very happy Easter to you if you're watching or listening. What are you going to do this Easter? How are you going to spend it? Are you going to join the millions of people on the roads, or are you going to stay at home? Tony says wise ones are staying at home this Easter. I'm off to Aldi. Barbecue weekend for us. Save the stress for another day.
Because it's been nice weather this weekend. So actually, if you've got the space for a barbecue, a little patch of garden or whatever, I think you get those disposable barbecues and things now. A barbecue this weekend
would be lovely.
Be very nice. Might do that on Sunday.
Do it for your neighbours, even if they just get the whiff of a sizzling sausage in the garden. It's smelling other people's barbecues is brilliant, isn't it?
It does get you in the mood for
it. It does.
Absolutely. Yeah, sausage, salad.
Yeah, nice bit of steak. Throw a steak on the barbie.
And it's a good excuse to get those white buns. I try not to eat white bread, because I try to be healthy, and I do like the granary stuff. But sometimes a white burger bun is just perfect.
Yes. A barbecue doesn't have to be only healthy food. You can go a bit junky food, can't you, on a barbie, which is rather nice. And if you're in Australia, if you're watching us in Australia at the moment, it'd be lovely to hear from you, because any excuse for a barbie in Australia. I mean, Christmas lunch is on a barbie usually in Australia. Have you already had your Good Friday barbie? They will have done. Yeah, they will have done. Yeah, that's right. Love to hear from you if you're in Australia. What did you have? What did you fling on the barbie today?
Shrimps.
Yeah.
Shrimps.
Chuck a shrimp on the barbie.
That's right. Your accent's better than mine. Well, look, if you are planning on going away this weekend, well, it is going to be pretty grim. So we're told millions of drivers are expected to hit the roads today. It's expected to be the busiest travel day of the Easter weekend.
Yeah. Insurance companies and roadside assistance providers have warned that some fuel shortages and congestion on the motorways, like the M25, could make the queues even worse. Wouldn't it be awful to run out of petrol in the middle of a Good Friday queue on the M25? It's the sort of ultimate nightmare, isn't it?
It would be a total nightmare. Well, let's check in with our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, who's standing by junction 26 of the M1. Oh, well, hate to say it, Will. Looks fairly quiet there.
It does, actually.
Good morning. It's probably a lot quieter here right now than it is along the M25. It's the last thing that you want to hear, fuel shortages at a time when everybody wants to get away. The RAC saying that more than 20 million leisure trips, so that's people specifically going for holidays. The AA says that it's going to be 27 million trips in general, so people that are unfortunately still having to work are still going to be on the roads as well. You can see behind me from where I am in Nottinghamshire at junction 26, like you say, there are a lot of HGVs, there are a lot of smaller cars as well, people taking that travel advice to get out onto the roads early. It's the same thing every year, hearing that advice: travel early, stay off the roads during those peak times, try and travel before 9 a.m. and after 7:30. But of course, this hasn't been happening for the last 2 years. We've had the pandemic, which means that many people have chosen to stay really local. Of course, though, this year we're having these problems along airports, particularly Manchester and Birmingham, so some people are going to be getting out on the road to go to those staycations. This way leads towards the north, so if you were from the Midlands and you wanted to try and get to Blackpool for the weekend, you can find yourself in Blackpool just by following that up for around 100 miles or so. There are some problems with the rail network as well. Easter bank holiday is always a time that Network Rail decides that they are going to be doing some of these works that they think that most people won't be travelling on the rail. So there's £83 million worth of rail works going on right now over this weekend, 530 different projects. There's also going to be problems at Euston, that big train station in London, which is going to cause a lot of people problems if they're going down from Manchester to London to the Wembley semi-finals, where Manchester City is going to be playing against Liverpool. We've also got problems with P&O ferries because, of course, a month on, we still don't have a lot of those routes going as they are still waiting on regulatory authorisation for P&O ferries. So it is a bit of a perfect storm. There are a lot of problems, but I'm sure you will see today a lot of people really happy that they actually can do these sorts of trips when they've spent so much of the pandemic pent up and maybe sitting in their garden talking to their neighbours for the last 2 years.
No, it's going to be a good day for sitting in the garden talking to the neighbours.
I would think so, Will.
Yeah.
We're not all as adventurous as you, young man.
No, I don't know about you, Will, but it's the prospect of a long journey at the moment with the kids in the back screaming. Did you ever play car games when you were a kid? Have you got any good ideas for car games?
Yes, do you know what? We were quite authentic and we used to make up our own, particularly with me and my brothers when I was a kid. And what I used to do, because it was the Spider-Man movie was quite big at the time, was I used to pretend that I was Spider-Man jumping between different objects as you went along, so different lampposts, different cars, and that was a really entertaining way, surprisingly. And of course you had all the different sing-songs that you would do with your parents over the years.
OK, Peter Parker, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
You do need to use your imagination, I think, if you're stuck in a car in just a long, boring, or if you're crawling in endless traffic. Sorry to put the wind up you, because it's not happening yet, is it? But all of the organisations seem to think it is going to happen.
22. I think the figure is 22 million car journeys today.
That is
which is pretty grim. Was that over the weekend?
Tough going.
So, I mean, it's not.
Yeah, but today is the day to travel, isn't it? If you're going to try and get anywhere for Easter, you do it on Good Friday, don't you?
Maybe more people. Maybe people have heard us talking about it.
They're all staying at home.
No, went last night. Maybe.
That's what I think I'd do. I think I'd opt for a middle of the night journey.
Yeah,
it's not always convenient, but sometimes it's the only thing to do.
We're used to driving down the motorways in the middle of the night, though, aren't we?
Yes, true. And actually, there's a good point there. At least you can usually get where you want to go.
Yeah. Anyway, let us know what you're doing or what you're not doing this weekend.
And any good ideas for car games? keep everybody happy. Shall we bring you up to date with the latest headlines now? The Prime Minister wants the first flight carrying migrants to leave for Rwanda late next month. Yesterday, Boris Johnson confirmed asylum seekers who are deemed to have entered the UK illegally, including on small boats, will be flown thousands of miles away for processing. He said the £120 million deal will serve as a considerable deterrent.
US defence officials say the loss of a Russian ship in the Black Sea will be a big blow for naval capabilities. The Moskva sank after Ukrainian forces claimed to have hit it with 2 anti-ship missiles on Wednesday. Russian state media say the vessel went down after ammunition exploded on board.
Dozens of Palestinians have been injured after clashes with Israeli police at Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of the holiest sites in the city. Officers attempted to disperse a large crowd of people, some wearing masks, who authorities said were throwing rocks at a compound after the morning prayer. The Palestinian Red Crescent says at least 59 people have been injured.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have met in secret with Her Majesty the Queen at Windsor Castle. Harry and Meghan, who've not been in the UK together. She's not been here since about January or March 2020. So it's more than 2 years ago. It's also thought they met Prince Charles. The couple made the visit ahead of their appearance at the Invictus Games in the Netherlands in the next week or two.
The Prime Minister Boris Johnson yesterday unveiled his new plan for tackling illegal immigration.
Now, migrants that reach the UK on small boats across the Channel will be flown to Rwanda while their asylum claims are processed.
While many reflect on the new initiative, critics are saying this policy will be extremely difficult to defend in the courts.
Well, let's talk to UK immigration lawyer Harjap Singh Bangal. Good morning. It's good to see you this morning. What's your assessment of the scheme?
It's interesting to see how it's going to work out. Initially, when everyone thinks, OK, this is a good way to deal with it and it might work. However, when you do a bit of digging around and you realise, well, hold on, the figures are really unworkable, especially the ones announced by the government, and the lack of detail at the moment, we just can't see it working.
What's wrong with the figures?
If you think about last year, Australia processed 249 people offshore. It cost them £461 million, so UK pounds. If we're thinking, and the expectations are now, in the eyes of the British public, oh, this is great, there's going to be 20,000 people sent to Rwanda, their figures just don't make sense at all. £120 million isn't going to cut it. And now we've realised actually that £120 million isn't the budget. That's just a sort of like sweetener for the Rwandan government and almost say, look, will you develop your country? The other thing is, Australia have spent in the past 10 years £5 billion on this and only managed to process 3,500.
How does it compare? I mean, it's delving into the figures, isn't it, that's going to make a difference. But what does it costing us? It might cost a lot of money, which is difficult to swallow in some ways. But how does it compare to what it costs to have them here, to house them, to feed them, to have them in the NHS and getting benefits and all the rest?
To give them legal aid to fight their cases?
Well, once again, let's always look for the figures. The figures say only 4% of migrants take benefits. 14% of British people take benefits. So in that context, 96 out of 100 people, migrants or refugees who come over, do not take benefits. Now, the fact that they're housed in hotels, that's a matter for local authorities who should be able to find alternative accommodation for them. The hotels are owned by British people or British companies, and they're making money out of it. They're making money out of it that goes back, and they should be paying the tax that goes back. So it's a circle like this. And essentially, it would be cheaper to house them here. But if we're going to look at housing them offshore and dealing with them offshore, we're going to end up with billions, which we haven't been told yet. I'd rather we be told, here's the plan, here's what it's going to cost us in 5 years, this is exactly how many people we're going to process.
But we don't know the effect. I mean, the whole idea as well is that it will act as a deterrent. We don't know that it won't work, and that if it does put a lot of people off even trying to come here, it lessens the problem.
That's one of the arguments, and Boris Johnson has said, oh, it's meant to smash the gangs and the rings. But nothing against the gangs was announced yesterday. There wasn't announced extra intelligence to catch the gangs. There wasn't announced an elite unit to smash these gangs.
But you don't actually need that, do you? If the aim of this is to say we want to deter people from actually wanting to get to the UK because they know they're not going to get there, whoever they pay.
Punishing the drug user is not going to stop the drug dealer. Punishing the migrant or the refugee and sending them abroad is not going to stop these gangs. These gangs are already, I can guarantee you since yesterday, plotting a new route from Rwanda to the UK.
But you say punishing them. They have tried to enter Britain illegally.
Yeah.
That's why they will be, first of all, they'll be examined here to see whether or not they have a true claim. And if not, they are sent to Rwanda. As far as you understand from what's been announced, what happens in Rwanda? Are they still considered for immigration to Britain, or is the choice go back where you came from or apply for immigration in Rwanda?
No, see, this is the problem. The claim for asylum is for the claim for asylum in the UK. The fact that they're processed offshore does not necessarily change the end result. If they're granted asylum in the UK in the end, like a lot of people are, over 50% of people who apply are, then they'll have to be brought back in the UK. You can't say to someone who's claiming asylum from, say, Somalia, all right, the UK gives you asylum, but we'll just buy your house next door to where you're saying because it's safe, or we'll just buy your house down the road in the same town. They're claiming asylum because they're not safe in that country, and they've claimed asylum from you in your country, or in this case, in our country. And so if it's decided they do qualify asylum, we'll have to bring them back. So the whole exercise of processing them offshore except
the argument is, as you say, more than 50% of people are granted asylum. But those people who aren't granted asylum are very often not deported.
Yeah.
And so they're stuck in the UK anyway. In this situation, if you don't get asylum, you're not in the UK.
Yep, that is the only argument in which we can think of, right, OK, so these people who are refused asylum, they won't be in front of our eyes, we won't have to run around catching them. But the Israelis did a similar thing in Rwanda. So for 3 years, they sent 3,000 refugees to Rwanda to be processed. Last year, they went back to see how many of them people had resettled. Only 9 were left. The rest had been re-trafficked out to parts of the world. Some of them have ended up here. So it shows that they're not going to stay in Rwanda forever. Rwanda are not bound to keep them. Remember...
Oh, but that's not our aim, is it? Yeah. We're not aiming to send them to Rwanda to stay there.
Yeah, but we're saying we're trying to smash the gangs and stop the gangs trafficking. We're not.
Well, stop them trafficking to the UK.
But that's necessarily not going to work, is it, if they're going to end up back in Europe and the UK again? If they're going to end up their way back to France again and from Rwanda, and they're going to pay the traffickers. Surely we're creating
to come back to the UK,
or to go anywhere back into Europe.
But that, in essence, that isn't our problem.
Yeah, but then
I mean that's how we're looking at it now. Is it's getting them out again? If they did try to get back into the UK again, well, guess what? Back on the merry-go-round, they'd end up back in Rwanda.
They might not necessarily go back to Rwanda. This is the thing. We do have the infrastructure and the costs. And the costing billions to send the same...
Why not suck it and see? The front page of the Daily Mail makes it very clear. Boris Johnson last night vowed to take on the army of left-wing lawyers and naysayers lining up to thwart his plan to fly asylum seekers to Rwanda. They feel that it's the lawyers who are probably going to try and quash this plan.
That's like saying, I want to do something illegal, but I know someone's going to stop me. So tomorrow... if, say, a news organisation said, we're going to sack all our staff, but you know what, I might have to go to tribunal, lawyers are going to take me to tribunal. That's right, because you've broken the law. The lawyers, it's not the lawyers who say you've broken the law, it's the judges who make the decision, who are neutral. If we respect the judges...
But it's going to get mired down now, isn't it, by law and courtroom dramas.
Because something illegal...
You believe it's illegal?
Illegal, is it?
Well, that's for judges to decide, isn't it? So
no, it's not for judges to decide. This is about passing legislation.
Yeah, and not all legislation that is passed is legal, is correct, is challenged. That's what the courts are for, to challenge legislation.
It sounds to me as though you're squaring up for this already.
No, we're not squaring up for it. I'm just saying, as long as everything's within the remit of the law, That's fine for everybody. But however, if you're trying to do something which is illegal, and you're trying to erode people's rights, then of course it's going to get challenged. But don't expect people to sit back and say, well, we're going to do what we're going to do and no one should be able to challenge.
No, but what about that strikes you as not being legal?
Well, the fact is that if someone's granted asylum in the UK, then how can you say you've got to stay in Rwanda?
Well, you wouldn't. That's not what they're right.
That's what he's saying. He's saying it's a one-way ticket.
Well, if you're an illegal asylum seeker,
but you get granted asylum.
Not if it's saying not if you're not granted. He's saying it's a one-way ticket if you're not granted asylum.
Well, that decision takes place after the processing has happened, right?
Yeah.
So how can you say?
So then you'd have to bring them back.
How can you give something? It's not a one-way ticket.
Well, no, but that's... well, no, for some people, no, it wouldn't be.
No, well, exactly. So why say it is going to be a one-way ticket? Why raise the expectations of the public that these people are going to be out of the UK for good, when we know we're going to have to...
He wants to deter illegal immigration, to stop them coming in the first place, to stop them trying.
To smash the gangs. Listen, we know where they operate from. For the last 30 years, they operate from the French coast. It doesn't take rocket science to work that out. We know they land in Kent. We know exactly where they've been landing in Dover and in Kent, the surrounding areas. In 30 years, if we can't catch people who are using the same route, it's of someone catching the same bus journey from one destination to another, and we can't track the people who are bringing these over, then there's something lacking in our intelligence. We have got elite squads in this country, elite army, elite personnel.
Yeah, in this country, they're not coming from this country. They're coming from France and other countries.
But they're coming to this country, and we can protect our borders, and we can get the information, and we can get these people who are doing the gangs. How come the gangs are still 10 steps ahead of us? I don't understand this. And how comes we can't catch the traffickers who are using the same routes? They're not coming from different locations. They're coming from the same place, the same gangs. A journalist can get there with a camera and see these people being led onto a dinghy and all of that. Yet our Interpol can't get there and arrest these people.
What I don't understand from your perspective is... you're saying when they come here, more than 50% are granted asylum. Fair enough. But you also seem to be saying, well, why aren't we stopping them at source on the other side of the channel? In which case, none of them would get here, none of them would be granted asylum. Is that the ideal situation then? You don't want them to be here getting asylum?
The ideal situation is, which this government doesn't seem to be considering, is if we have a processing centre in France. It's nearer, our personnel can be located there, our staff will be more in touch there rather than 4,000 miles away. The asylum seekers can claim asylum there. They won't feel the need to come on a dinghy. Some will still come. We'll not stop them all. We've got to realise that.
Well, it's those people who don't get asylum granted, isn't it?
Yeah, they might still come. However, the ones that do get, they don't have to go on these journeys. So they don't have to risk their life. They don't have to take their kids aboard a dinghy. And if someone gets rejected, he might just think, you know what, I don't need to go to the UK. I can stay in France. I've had my shot. I've shot my shot and it hasn't worked. And if I'm only going to the UK to get rejected and then having to go underground, then I might as well stay in France. But it's the fact that...
But that argument would then apply to those people who go to Rwanda, wouldn't it? And are deemed to be illegal and to have their application failed. And 5 minutes ago you're saying, oh no, they're just going to try again.
Yeah,
well, why, if they're in France and they're rejected, they're just going to try again?
Some of them will always try to come out. And I think that's the myth we've got to stop, that we can stop people coming here indefinitely. We can stop everyone coming here. That's a promise we cannot uphold, and we haven't been able to uphold. So we've got to realise, look, how much money do we want to spend on it? How many people are we realistically going to be able to send to Rwanda? If we're going to model ourselves on an Australian system or a Denmark system, and Denmark signed a deal with Rwanda last year, but there's no evidence of them having sent even one person over to Rwanda yet. Why is that? So they've paid a lot of money in a year.
Maybe the deterrence worked.
Oh, it doesn't seem like it.
Supply and demand.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. That is the deterrence of work. And we've got another war on. So there's going to be more refugees that are coming.
But it's the difference, isn't it, between refugees and asylum seekers and migrants and all. I mean, it's where it gets complicated.
Exactly. And we have a mixture coming over. And until we process each one properly, we're not going to realise who's what and where they come from. The argument with a French processing centre is they will be fingerprinted at point, at source. We will at least know who that person is who's coming in. If they come into the UK again, we will know, oh, here we are, you applied in France and we refused you, therefore we can send you back. You've had your shot. Whereas someone who lands here without any paperwork, we don't know who they are, where they come from, we have no fingerprints, no DNA. We can collect all of this information already at one point before they've even landed on our shores, and surely that is worth a go.
OK. Harjap Singh, Bengal, good to talk to you. Really good to get your perspective. Thank you.
And let us know your perspective on it, your views, please. GBViews at gbnews.uk.
It's a very complicated issue.
It is, and that maybe there's no perfect answer.
Maybe not. So let us know what you think. And don't go anywhere, of course. We've got plenty more to come for you, including a roundup of today's sporting action with Paul Coit in a couple of minutes.
Hello there, I'm Stephen Keats and I've got your latest Met Office forecast for you. The Easter weekend, not looking too bad for most of us. Some warmth to be had, 1 or 2 showers, but as we go on through the weekend, progressively turning a bit more unsettled from the west. But for this morning, though, high pressure still hanging firm to the east of the UK, and that will exert an influence across much of the country, actually. These weather fronts not really making much inroads from the west. That said, though, for parts of Wales, southwest England, a bit damp, drizzly first thing this morning, some mist and murk around the coasts. Quite cloudy for Northern Ireland and the far west of Scotland too, and this is how it will remain for much of the day. Further east, though, that's where we can see the best of the sunshine. The cloud tended to bubble up through the afternoon and 1 or 2 showers possible across eastern England. Across Northern Ireland, though, if we do see a bit of brightness developing, we could see a few heavier, perhaps thundery showers this afternoon. 14 degrees there in Belfast. Contrast that with quite a warm 22 degrees in London, so likely to be the warmest day of the year. Showers across Northern Ireland then will tend to fizzle out through the evening, but 1 or 2 breaking out across parts of Northern England into southern Scotland. These will push their way further north this evening into Saturday morning to sit across eastern Scotland for the first part of Saturday. Elsewhere, though, it is a drier picture. Variable amounts of clouds and mist and murk returning to some southern and western coasts, probably clearest towards eastern England. And here, the lowest temperatures, 6 or 7 Celsius. So not a particularly cold start to Saturday then. Quite a bit of cloud around for some of us, some sunshine for others, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. Southern and western coast a bit grey and misty, but on the whole this will tend to burn back in to the coast, and even here I think we'll see some sunny spells at times for the day, but the best of the sunshine for the most part will be inland with some fair weather cloud bubbling up, maybe the odd shower, and again reasonable warmth to be had, 18 to 20 degrees, perhaps not quite as high as what we'll see today, but still pretty good for the time of year. So Saturday set fair then, the odd shower possible, on the whole some sunshine, progressively turning a bit cloudier, a bit cooler, a bit wetter as we move through Sunday and Monday, and as it does so those temperatures come back down to the mid-teens. Take care.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello again, it's 7:32. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Time for all the sport this morning. Paul Coyte is here. Good to see you, Paul.
What is
Good
it
to see
already?
you. I'm nervous already. Let's talk Europa League, should we?
You want to talk about the Hammers, don't you?
I do want to talk about the Hammers. Well, you're very well against Lyon.
West Ham were magnificent against Lyon yesterday and came through 3-0 away at Lyon to move into the semi-finals of the Europa League.
I did really think it was a game of two halves.
It was, you know what, it's a very good point that you said that, because a lot of people have been saying exactly the same thing. Professionals in the business have been saying that. It was a game of two halves. Some even thought it was a game of three, because anyway, they were terrific. Craig Dawson, Declan Rice, Jarrod Bowen scored. Furthest that they've gone in Europe for 46 years. And here comes the irony. Here comes where history repeats itself. And the last game that they played at that level in European competition, 46 years ago, they played Eintracht Frankfurt and won 3-1. And guess who they're playing in the semi-final? Eintracht Frankfurt.
Will they see that as a good omen or a bad one?
I think probably a good one, because it could have been Barcelona. And although West Ham fans would love to have played Barcelona because they've never played them in Europe, you never know what you're going to get with Barcelona. But Eintracht Frankfurt, they pulled off an incredible result. They beat Barcelona 3-2, though 3-0 up. And they're 10th in the Bundesliga. So, they're not doing very well in Germany, but they just got this fantastic result. So, they are now going to be playing West Ham. Rangers as well, I should mention.
Kamal
Rangers were fantastic. And of course, as you say there, Kamal Roof scored the winner. It could have been, it looked like it was going down to the wire, but then Braga, who they beat, 2 players they had sent off, which always helps when you're playing in a game to play against 9 men. Also, there's no away goals rule, which then would have put Rangers out because they scored late, but then it ended up coming through. So a fantastic result for Rangers. Furthest they've been in the competition for 14 years. So now they're through to the semi-final as well, and they will play Leipzig. So it's possible we could have a Rangers-West Ham final, but touch wood, we'd be careful.
Get exciting.
Yeah, it would be very all British.
Good. Yep. Right, I think we've come to the end of our time, have we?
No, we've got a bit more.
I was going to say, it was a very quick sport.
We've got a bit longer.
This is a game of two halves.
Well, I was going to ask a seriously interesting football question.
Yes.
Well, it's not really, but I just thought when you were saying would they see that as a good thing or a bad thing, an omen? Are footballers superstitious?
Unbelievably superstitious.
Really?
Oh, the most superstitious people you would ever meet. Footballers, when you hear stories of, I've always got to put the right sock on before the left sock. The late Martin Peters. Now, Martin Peters, who played in 66, no longer with us, I knew very well. He would not pass you on the stairs. And this is just one of the many superstitions he had. If you saw him on stairs, he would go, no, I'll have to... He would wait for ages, but I'd say more footballers are superstitious than not superstitious.
How interesting!
It really is.
It's all nonsense, isn't it?
It is nonsense. It's complete nonsense. I was speaking to, I think it was Peter Schmeichel I spoke to, the old Manchester United goalkeeper, a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he got into this superstition where he was doing it. He had a good game and then thought, right, I'm going to have to do exactly
the same thing again.
And it turned out that he'd forgotten. And then he played well, and then realised it's a load of nonsense.
Yes, of course.
Load of nonsense.
Of course it is.
But But also, I do want to mention Leicester. Leicester through as well into the Europa Conference League. They beat PSV Eindhoven. Huge result for them as well. First European semi-final for them too. So it's been a brilliant night for British teams in Europe.
More sport later. Do stay with us. We've got plenty more to come.
She's off.
I am. Including a look at the front pages of the newspapers.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
7:38 morning to you. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. We love to get you involved, lots of views and things. But I tell you what's driving me mad.
What?
At home at the minute, because we have lots of interesting discussions that my other half suddenly starts going on about, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about, I think this, I think that. So I said last night, and gone to bed, I said, I don't want to hear it. So if you want to say that, gbviews@gbnews.uk.
I told you when I was on holiday, people coming up to me and saying, gbviews@gbnews.uk. So it's something that we're both becoming famous for saying.
Yes, there you go. Let's run you through the papers this morning. Start with the Times. It says Boris Johnson wants the first flight taking Channel migrants to Central Africa to leave in the next month.
Guardian is also saying that plans to send Channel migrants to Rwanda have been widely condemned, with critics calling the plan inhumane.
The Express takes a favourable view towards the PM's Rwandan scheme, noting the vow to end the Channel migrant crisis.
And the Mirror criticises the Rwandan migration scheme, calling it inhumane and doubting that it's actually going to work.
Onto the Mail. Boris Johnson has vowed to do whatever it takes to push through his immigration plan.
So let's go through the insides of the paper. Well, not just the insides of the papers, I suppose. With Joanna Williams, Polly Mackenzie, welcome back. Thanks very much. Joanna, the Ukraine invasion and the Russian parading of a captured Briton.
Yes, so this is the story of Aidan Aslin. He's a 28-year-old man from Nottinghamshire, and he went over to Ukraine to fight for Ukrainian liberation, essentially to fight against the invading Russian forces. He was involved in the defence of Mariupol, which is the place we've heard so much about on our TV screens over the past few weeks. And sadly, he's been captured by Russians. His picture is on the insides of many of the newspapers this morning. He's in a terrible state, quite frankly. I mean, looks absolutely awful, really dreadful. But I kind of think this is an important story to flag up, because I think there's a bit of a danger in the UK right now that we're kind of becoming a little bit bored, dare I say, of what's going on in Ukraine, or we kind of think that it's over and it's done now, and it's clearly not. And this man's terrible face, I think, really brings home to us the reality of war and reminds us that this has not gone away. This is still happening.
Do you know, I don't think we're bored, do you? I know we're in the news business, so we talk about it more than maybe
I don't
lots
mean
of people.
bored, but other stories have taken place, for example, and that was
war fatigue. Don't you?
I think it's just other things are now happening in the world. I mean, we went for a period of about 4 weeks where this was the main story. Of course it was, and then slowly, I think it was the P&O ferry story was the very first thing that then pushed the Ukraine war off the front.
And then the cost of living crisis.
Yes, of course, and of course that was bound to be the case. But like I say, I'm just really concerned that we don't forget about it, that we don't assume it's over. And I think there's a real danger that we kind of almost think, well, the Ukrainians have won the moral high ground, and the Russians have retreated from some places.
But it ain't over yet. My
Exactly.
goodness.
And the danger is the Russians are
still very
actually
dangerous.
regrouping and are just planning a much harsher pushback in the east.
Onto the Guardian, Polly, obviously we spent the best part of a couple of years in lockdown. What were people doing? Because there's no baby boom.
No, I remember at the beginning of this, the Prime Minister and a number of other people suggested that we would have a baby boom because people would be indoors, they wouldn't have anything to do, so they'd probably just go around making babies. I think it's at the time I thought it was completely misguided, and it turns out that I was right and the Prime Minister was wrong. Because actually the financial precarity of the pandemic meant that people, because they've got access to contraception, they might have had plenty of sex, we don't know, but they haven't turned that into babies. People think of the, obviously there was huge post-war baby boom, but that was post-war once it was over. I think we need to think about how we encourage and enable people to have the families that they want. People don't really have kids if they can't afford them, as a general rule. And people were so worried about their financial situation during the pandemic that they didn't. The reality is, I think people, with the cost of living crisis, you just mentioned it, Stephen, people aren't going to be having kids. And we know that, that there is a real problem with our birth rate in this country. And I think we need to think much more carefully about what we're doing to younger people. We're putting up the interest rate for student loans. It's incredibly difficult to buy a house, to rent property.
I mean, our population's going up and up and up. I would have thought fewer babies was probably a good thing at the moment.
Well, it depends. How do you want to deal with...
Who's going to pay our pensions?
Exactly. Who's going to pay your pensions? What you want is a decent ratio between working people and people who aren't working. Under 18s and over 65s. And the reality is we haven't gotten... That ratio is getting worse and worse and worse. It's one of the reasons why there's so much pressure on paying for the NHS and paying for pensions. So you've got two choices, right? You can have new migrants. Good thing about them is they tend to be over 18, and so they can go straight to paying their taxes and contributing. They tend to be net beneficiaries. But it means that, the kind of the social dynamic of your country is changing. I think we also need kids in our society to, actually invest in the future of the country.
Well, I've got three. So
Me too.
I've been doing we've been doing our bit collectively then. And I'm not rich, so I don't think it's just money. Obviously it helps, and it certainly makes having children a whole lot easier.
It's happiness as well, isn't it?
It is,
I think.
Security. And do you know what?
Security, feeling good about the world.
I think you're right. I think the big thing about lockdown was that it took away all those support networks that you would normally have, whether that's from your family or even from nurseries or, your health visitor, where you actually go out and see somebody in real life, not just on Zoom. And the idea of having all of those things taken away from you and you being just on your own. Well, I have to say, rewind the time, I wouldn't have had 3 children if I thought I was doing it during the conditions of lockdown.
No, I think
being completely
it's
isolated.
interesting. It's what makes you broody, isn't it? And I would have thought what makes you broody is feeling content with the world, feeling cosy and looked after. And at the moment, it's certainly not been prevalent, has it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the faster we can get back to that, the better for you.
OK, what makes you broody? That's what I want to know. GBNews at GBNews.uk.
Obviously.
What makes you broody?
Interesting. I'll tell you what I want to know about, Joanna, is clever cats. I love my cats. Clever cats.
Well, does your cat know your name, Stephen?
Well, only if he knows.
Does he say your name very often?
But this is how do cats know your name? Because
they don't say it.
They've done a scientific experiment. This is scientists. They got 48 cats to be precise, and they showed them pictures of their owners, and they either said the right name, the owner's name, or they said the wrong name, a completely made-up name. And apparently, the cats who were shown a picture of their owner but the wrong name looked confused.
No,
gosh, that's scientific. Oh, we're all terribly impressed with that.
I'm wondering how you measure confusion. I've got 2 cats, and honestly, I have to say I love my cats dearly, but whether they're looking confused or not confused, I honestly wouldn't be able to
My
tell.
cat has a permanent sort of feature of disdain on his face. That's all that cats do. Disdain, contempt. Obviously, they think that they're in charge, and you, frankly, have very little role in life.
My dog looks in the mirror. Does anyone else dogs look? Yeah, my dog looks in the mirror.
I wonder what it thinks it's seeing.
He doesn't look in the... She doesn't look in the mirror at her. She looks in the mirror at me.
Oh, yeah.
Aww.
Yeah.
That's weird, isn't it?
We wonder.
I've never expected an animal to do that.
There's very few animals in nature that can recognise themselves in the mirror. There's, I think, gorillas can, and dolphins can.
Wow, how do you know this?
That's about it. I saw a documentary about it. But yeah, dolphins can. I'll tell you in the break how they discovered that. It's quite a bit saucy.
Really? Is it?
Yeah.
But dolphins can also detect underwater mines, can't they?
Right. No, they do also.
Well, they've trained to put mines onto ships in the war, apparently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Quick look, we've just got time for the mail and a Burger King selling vegan burgers.
Well, yeah, there was a Burger King in central London that went completely vegan for a whole month. I'm not sure if they were trying to test if slightly drunken people at the end of the night could tell the difference. But yeah, fake burgers, fake chicken, everything. And what some people are suggesting is that because of the carbon impact and also the cost of meat, that actually increasingly fast food, which is supposed to be sort of cheap and cheerful, will be vegan.
Oh, I wonder what their sales were like.
Yes, I wonder.
They haven't told us, but, you know, I mean, in the end, the great thing about Burger King, in my view, is the chips, right? Yeah. Like, Burger King chips are superior to McDonald's chips.
I don't know about that.
That's my strong view. I won't be budged. And in the end, the meat stuff, like, it's always a bit disappointing, right?
Yeah, I would have thought so too. And I think veganism is taking off in a big way. And it's not just because they're getting better at doing it, aren't they?
It's getting better.
Yeah.
Look, we're going to leave it there. Joanna, Polly, thank you very much indeed. Go and treat yourself to a vegan sausage in the next hour.
Or a particular sort of French fry.
Yes.
Whichever are the best.
Whichever are the best.
And bring us some back, will you? Always time for a French fry. At 7:48.
7:48, time for Get Your Foot in the Door, Anna Riley.
Yeah, she's on your doorstep today. She's GB News' Yorkshire and Humber reporter, Anna Riley, and she's in Selby, and I hope she can hear us this time. Hello, Anna.
Good morning, Anne and Stephen. Yes, well, as well as for the Easter getaway, people getting out in the cars to get away, people will be getting out into the shops as well for this bank holiday. And we have come to Revolution Records on the High Street here. We're going to have a word with the owner of the shop to speak to him about the day's news. Good morning, you're live on GB News TV and radio. Can we pop in?
No problem, thank you.
Thank you very much. Wow, there's plenty of records in this shop, that's for sure. You just introduce yourself for our viewers and listeners.
Hi, I'm Michael Rogers from Revolution Records and I'm here in Selby on Finkel Street.
Tell me a little bit about your store, because something that I know about Selby is that it's a thriving high street. It's done really well post-pandemic. You know, there's a lot of independents opening. When did you open, and why a record shop?
I opened in September last year, and it's always been my passion in life to have a record shop. And it was in the lockdown that I really had a decision to change what I was doing in my life.
And show us some of your records here, and what is it about vinyl? Because a lot of people now, they've got digital, haven't they? That's how they consume music. What is it about an actual record?
The feel of having a record in your hand, and the feel and the touch and how it sounds compared to a digital is fantastic. It's so much better.
And with the rising costs of living, have you seen a downturn in customers? Are people sort of saying it's a commodity that they can't afford and they need to put food in the trolleys rather than coming out and buying records?
Slightly a little bit. There's people that probably will be saving up for that new release that's coming back and maybe would cut back. Couple of days are never the same as each other. It's up and down now and again.
And just tell us a little bit about this bank holiday weekend. Are you expecting a lot of customers to come in?
Yeah, I really am, because Selby's on a market day on a bank holiday is absolutely boom town. All down the street, down Finkel Street, there's small traders and everybody. It's fantastic. It's great.
Thank you, Michael. So, Stephen and Anne, if you are looking for a record, there are certainly plenty to go at here at Revolution Records in Selby.
Lovely stuff. Anna, thanks very much indeed.
Oh, yes, I've got some. No, I mean, he's clearly a bit of a weird mercenary.
And, I've got about 5 vinyl records. I do need a few more.
You do need a few more.
They look lovely when spinning around, don't they? They're just more. You wouldn't like them because you like gadgets, don't you?
Yeah.
How do you play your music on a Spotify type thing?
Sort of things.
Yeah.
The lady speaker does it. You know the one I mean?
Yes.
She plays.
Oh, yeah, the lady speaker.
Oh, mind you, talking of music, the Liverpool Lighthouse Choir have released a cover version of the classic Abide With Me, and it's all to mark the 33rd anniversary of the Hillsborough disaster. Have a listen.
Abide with me, fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide. When
Well, the song will be used to pay tribute to the 97 victims lost to the tragedy and offer hope and healing to everyone who's still being affected by the loss and pain of losing loved ones who never returned from that game.
I think it would touch absolutely anyone who's lost anyone at any time, actually. To explain how important this song is and pay tribute to the victims is Hillsborough survivor and member of the Liverpool Lighthouse Choir, Gareth Hayes. Gareth, very good morning to you. Thank you so much. And were you actually singing on that?
Well, you didn't get to my particular solo. You featured our female soprano vocalist, Dana Rushton, there. But nevertheless, I do sing a solo later on in Abide With Me, yes.
Okay, well, we'll have to
spin
dig that
forward
out
and try and find it.
We'll.
Yeah.
Look, 33 years on, how raw is this still, Gareth? I mean, not just for you, who was there and lost a friend, I know, but actually for the whole city.
It's something that will always be with us, especially at this time of year. It's hard to... Oh, I thought we'd gone then. Flintshire, Cheshire. Flintshires in Flintshire. In Wales. Got that wrong. Anyway, it's always hard, especially this time of year. It's very difficult to describe it. It really is, especially to generations who didn't experience it or don't remember it. It's just something that we always carry with us in here.
Does it still give you nightmares, or did you get past that at some point?
For the first 12 months afterwards, I became a borderline alcoholic. There's no other way of putting it. Now, I managed to pull myself away from that particular brink, but it's something that, yes, I'll always remember. At that time, at the age of 22, as I was, it was the worst day of my life. I've had worse days since, but back then, at that age, it didn't get any worse.
Right, because you went to the match that day with a friend, didn't you?
To say I was close friends with John McBrien of Holywell would be putting it a little untruthfully. I mean, travelled with him to every home game, that much is true. Knew him from that. I could tell you a bit of a funny story about when we played Newcastle United earlier on this season and they beat us for the first time in Anfield for many, many years. But that'd probably take up too much of your time. Yes, I mean, I knew John. We called him Bamba. He was due to go to one of the two Liverpool universities to study politics. I'll leave it up to you to work out why we called him Bamba. But yes, I knew John.
And he didn't come back from the game. You did. 97 in all dead, and those families will never forget either. And as you said, it's so cruel somehow, the passing of time, because there are people, young people we work with now who didn't see it, who didn't go through what the shock the whole country went through. But a lot of water's gone under the bridge, and now you're singing this song. You've released this record. How did you get involved in the choir in the first place?
This was something that came about through Facebook. I forget how long ago it was. It was summer of last year. It was during the pandemic anyway. And basically, I saw it on my Facebook feed. They were looking for, singers in the Merseyside area or had a Hillsborough connection. And seeing as I was there...
The ticket.
As you can see, you don't get much of a better connection than that.
No, of course not.
How important has it been to be able to mix with people who are and perform with people and perhaps heal with people who in a similar position to you?
I'm the only member of the choir that I know of that was actually there on the day. I mean, other members of the choir have other connections, family members who passed away, friends who passed away, things of this nature. But we all have a connection through one way or another. And yes, it is a common bond.
I was wondering how on earth somebody who'd been through it, as you did, and has still got those memories and still this awful emotional tie, I wonder how on earth you could sing Abide With Me without cracking up.
At the time, Anne, I was just worrying about my performance, to be quite honest with you. And I'm used to singing. It's something I've been doing since the age of 12 in school choirs at that age. So it's something I've been doing for many years. And as I mentioned, it's something I got accustomed to. I mean, yes, there's emotion behind the words. I'm not saying that for 1 minute. But, yeah, I was just concentrating on my own performance. It's the only way I could do it.
Gareth, it's really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We really appreciate it. And to end the programme this hour, let's just listen to Gareth in action.
I fear no foe. With thee at hand to bless. Ills have no weight, and 'tis no bitterness. Where is death's sting? Where grave thy victor?
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The Great British Getaway. Millions of Brits are expected on the roads this Good Friday in what is predicted to be the busiest travel day of the year. Are you perhaps one of them?
Well, meanwhile, rail passengers have been warned of delays to their journeys as Network Rail carries out a number of engineering works.
So good morning, it's 8 o'clock on the 15th of April. It's Good Friday. Happy Easter. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
Now, if you are getting behind the wheel this morning, don't forget, you don't actually have to leave us because you can take us with you. We're on the radio on DAB+. So coming up for you today.
Harry and Meghan have flown to the UK to hold a secret meeting with the Queen at Windsor ahead of their appearance at the Invictus Games in The Hague.
The Prime Minister wants to see the first migrants processed in Rwanda within 6 weeks as part of a scheme to curb channel crossings. I have to say we've had dissenting voices on the programme this morning about the Rwanda situation, which is really good because this is all about getting all views and all sides of the argument. But I have to say, I don't think you're really agreeing with them, or not those of you who are getting in touch. Robert, morning Robert, says, I've nothing against immigration in principle. What I object to is the amount of people trying to change the ways of our culture. I think it's an interesting point, I think.
All right, well, Shirley asks, if as stated by your guest, over 50% of asylum seekers are eventually successful, this means something between 1% and 49% are unsuccessful. Are they sent back to France or their home country? Because we never hear about this. If not, where are they?
Yeah, well, this is part of the
That's
problem.
part of the problem.
That they have a problem getting them out of the country.
And then they tend to sort of just drift away, and we lose contact with them, and you never really know where they are.
Yeah, so that is the issue. Now, if they're processed in another country, the argument is, well, at least they won't disappear in the UK. Mark, so thank you, Mark. Well done for such an informed debate on the Rwanda situation. And it is important, isn't it, whether you agree or disagree with the lawyer who we had on, it's about hearing the views so that you can then make up your own mind.
Yeah, John says, I agree with Harjap, the lawyer we were speaking to. I think we need to be in France to process and also tackle the trafficking head on at the source to reduce the amount of boats coming over. Of course, cooperation on this between Britain and France hasn't really worked. And they're not all coming from France either now, are they?
Well, no, but they sort of have to get to France. A lot of them are getting to France first, and Paul says this should have been done years ago. Asylum should be claimed in the first friendly country you get to. Well, there are international rules about that, and a lot of the time, if you do arrive in what is deemed to be a safe country, you are meant to stay there.
Yes.
Technically, but of course that doesn't
What's a safe country now, as well?
But I suppose this is that would be our advantage as an island, that we're unlikely in a lot of cases to be the first port of call.
Yes, that's right. You have to get across the water to get to us.
So
somehow.
But no, it's interesting to get your thoughts. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Yeah.
Get in touch. Let us know what you think.
I also want to hear from you, please. Well, we both do. If you are planning actually on getting away this Easter, if so, I mean, maybe you already have. Maybe you're one of the wise who got in the car really early and is making the journey where the traffic hasn't quite yet built up. But if you are planning to, put the kids in the back, get the suitcases in the boot and go off, how are you going to do it? Do you think you'll get there okay? Have you really researched your route? And what car games are you going to play to keep the kids amused on the way?
Or have you cancelled? Have you changed your mind? And no one would blame you if you had, really, I don't think, unless you've got a grumpy aunt that you're off to visit who's demanding you attend. Because we expect millions of drivers are going to hit the roads today, this Good Friday. It is expected to be the busiest travel day of the Easter weekend. Train passengers also being warned of further delays. Network Rail is continuing work on multiple lines across the UK.
Well, for the latest on the rail delays, our GB News South East of England reporter Ellie Costello joins us now from St Pancras Station, I think you are. Ellie, what's it like there at the moment? Oh, it looks a bit quiet.
Good morning, Stephen and Anne. Yes, it does look quiet outside. It's lovely weather here. It's a great start to the Easter weekend, but unfortunately not the same story inside. I've just taken a walk through the station. It is absolutely packed. People walking through with their suitcases, and that queue for the Eurostar has already started to form. Lots of people obviously trying to get away for that 4-day weekend, for the Easter weekend, but that is often synonymous with travel chaos, and it looks like the same thing is going to happen this weekend. And of course it makes sense because it is the first COVID restriction-free Easter in 2 years. So of course lots of people are either trying to get abroad or get on those trains to go see family and friends up and down the country. But if you are using Eurostar or a rail service to get around today, do make sure you check before you travel, because there is a lot of disruption on the Eurostar and on the rail today. So I'm outside St Pancras now. now, which is the home of the Eurostar. Get trains here to Paris, to Brussels, and to Amsterdam. It's actually set to be the busiest weekend for Eurostar for the past 2 years. And there was that pre-COVID era, that record of 14 trains each day running between here and France, which sounds like fantastic news. But already in the past few days, we have seen massive delays, people getting onto the Eurostar. If you are trying to board a Eurostar train today, make sure you arrive at least 90 minutes before the departure of your train. It is taking quite a long time to get through with COVID documentation. It is taking a lot longer than usual as well because of staff delays. So do make sure you take time to come through security and get your passport checked. We were hearing stories yesterday of people arriving with an hour and a half to go, and they still weren't getting to the front of the queue in time. So do make sure you leave plenty of time if you are getting on a Eurostar. If you're using the train, then as you suggested there, as Stephen and our Network Rail are using this weekend to get along with a lot of engineering projects. The London Waterloo, which isn't very far from here, the line west of Staines is going to be closed. That lovely route down to southwest England, down to Devon, that's going to be disrupted. So if you are heading down to southwest England to see your family, do make sure you check before you travel because there's a lot of disruption down there. Not too far from here as well is Euston Station, which is actually one of the busiest stations in London. That is completely closed between today and Easter Monday, and that is to replace the tracks and to improve crossings there. So there's going to be major disruption at Euston, Waterloo, and of course if you're trying to get to the airport as well, to Heathrow, to Gatwick and to Stansted, all three of those are actually cut off from the usual public transport links over Easter. So the advice is check before you travel, leave plenty of time and do be patient.
OK, Ellie, thanks very much indeed.
It looks like summer behind
it.
Ellie
Looks
at the moment,
beautiful. If you're on, well, if you're listening on the radio, then perhaps you're out and about in the car today. Just have a peek through your windows or whatever. Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ellie.
It's meant to be the nicest day of the Easter weekend today.
Yes, and it's going to be nice and warm and sunny by the look of it.
Which makes you think it's not a day you want to spend hours in a train station or on a train or in a car.
Don't waste it.
It'd be a waste, wouldn't it?
It would make me rethink, I must say. I mean, because spend the day in the garden and then maybe travel later tonight.
I suppose part of the issue may be if you've got family and or friends who you've not seen for a long time because of the pandemic, maybe this is your one chance to go and see them, have that long overdue catch-up.
Yeah. Do get in touch and tell us where you're off to, how you're planning to get there, car games, everything else to do with travel today. Yeah. Or are you stuck in a queue watching us on the app?
Yes. Oh, maybe you are. If you are, send us a picture of the traffic. If it's safe to do so, if you're the passenger, not the driver, obviously. It is 10 minutes past 8. Let's bring you up to date with some of the other headlines this morning. And US defence officials say the loss of a Russian ship in the Black Sea will have a big blow for naval capabilities. The Moskva sank after Ukrainian forces claim to have hit it with anti-ship missiles on Wednesday. Russian state media say the vessel went down after ammunition exploded on board.
Dozens of Palestinians have been injured after clashes with Israeli police at Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of the holiest sites in the city. Officers attempted to disperse a large crowd, some wearing masks, who authorities said were throwing rocks at the compound after morning prayer. The Palestinian Red Crescent says at least 59 people have been injured.
And the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have met with the Queen at Windsor Castle, a secret meeting. Harry and Meghan haven't been in the UK together since they quit as senior royals more than 2 years ago. It's also thought they met the Prince of Wales. The couple made the visit en route to their appearance at the Invictus Games in the Netherlands.
Well, as we've mentioned earlier, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has unveiled his new plan for tackling illegal immigration.
And male migrants who reach the UK on small boats across the Channel will be flown to Rwanda while their asylum claims are processed.
While many reflect on the new initiative, critics are saying this policy will be extremely difficult to defend in the courts.
Well, let's talk to the chair of Migration Watch UK, Alp Mehmet, who's here in the studio. It's good to see you this morning. Look, a lot of the papers are saying this is it's cruel, it's inhumane, it's expensive, it won't work.
It may be all those things, and some people are saying it, but the fact is, I think they're losing sight of what this problem is all about. The huge numbers that are now crossing the channel have made it into an alternative and almost preferred way of migrating to this country. And it's going to continue to grow, and it's going to continue pouring money into the pockets of the smugglers. That's got to be tackled. Up until now, the government has really done very little to address this problem. This latest announcement is a start, and at least it shows intent that they are going to tackle it. It's not going to solve the problem. It's not suddenly going to stop all the boats coming across. Of course it's not. It's part of the solution, though, and I think that it's got to be tried. As for it being inhumane, that's a nonsense. Is it more humane to allow people to risk their lives in dinghies, in really unseaworthy vessels? That's a nonsense. It isn't inhumane. I think this is actually a kind thing to be doing.
Isn't it probably better, it's been put forward by several guests already on the programme this morning, wouldn't it be better to tackle this by actually having a processing system in France or whatever coastlines these people are coming from before they get to Britain at all, before they risk their lives?
Well, some people have suggested that we should have points, as has happened with Ukraine, where people can apply. All I would say is that were that to happen, it would soon be overwhelmed. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who are looking for a place to live, for a better life. And it would be a beeline.
You think it might encourage more people?
It would encourage people to make their way to wherever it is that we're providing this service for. That is what it's going to be.
I mean, a lot of the argument here is that this will smash the criminal gangs. The supply and demand, in effect. If people are put off from coming here because they know they're actually going to be moved straight to Rwanda, it'll stop the supply. Is that likely? That's
the hope. And I think some people think that will happen, thinking, yes, look what the Australians did, and it stopped. It isn't quite the same thing that we're proposing here. I don't think it will actually stop the smugglers. All they will do is probably focus on women and children, the old, and rather than the young men that it primarily is now.
Well, but what about the Australian model? Because that's being quoted a lot, and one of our guests earlier on was saying that they'd moved, in effect, a handful of people out of Australia to be processed. It'd end up costing about £400 million.
Yeah, well, it stopped the boats coming. That's the whole thing.
Has it?
Yes, and not only, more importantly, I think, the hundreds of people who were dying, that stopped as well, and that's even more.
So, do we know how it has stopped the boats coming? The word has got around, you simply won't get into Australia.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that must be what our government is hoping similarly will happen. The word will get around. It's no good trying to get into Britain because you'll end up in Rwanda.
That's exactly what the government is hoping is going to happen. It all depends really how it works, what happens when people are sent to Rwanda, how they're treated there, the legal challenges that are going to crop up. Well, not crop up. I think there'll be a flood of them. And eventually, I think it may well be a case of you haven't got the legislation right. You haven't got the authority to do this. Stop. If that happens, then it will all come to an end. But I think this is also helping Rwanda, actually. If we are talking about aid and helping people, the money that's going into Rwanda, which is trying to get its act together, it is trying to improve itself, well, this is certainly one way of doing it. And I don't think that there's anything wrong in sending them to Rwanda.
Is there an issue in terms of saying, well, in effect, if these people who go there, at least a proportion of them, don't get asylum granted, and therefore just out of our country and somewhere else, are we just pushing the problem somewhere else? And even if we are, do we have to care about that?
Well, you should always care about how human beings are being treated. Yes, we care about their treatment, but in terms of who we accept, I think any sovereign state really should have the right to determine who can and who can't come into its country, and indeed who can stay. And let's bear in mind also that this is about one part of the whole illegal immigration picture, that the people who are coming across the channel in boats are not alone in seeking to get into this country illegally and stay. There are those who are coming in the backs of boats. There are those who overstay, who come in legally, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people.
So we need to reform the system then on top of this, do we? Is that what we're saying? Because it does, despite all the ongoing political arguments, it does seem to have been let slide a little bit.
Yeah, it has, yeah. What we don't have is control. What we were promised is not there. And in fact, the Prime Minister admitted yesterday that this is about getting control. Well, about time, I say.
It's funny because, again, several guests on the programme have already cited Israel has tried to do the very similar thing, offshore the processing business to Rwanda, and it hasn't worked. We've been told it hasn't worked for them. It's a very expensive idea, but shouldn't we just suck it and see if it works?
Well, we should suck it and see if it works, but we should do our utmost to make sure that it does work. And this is not offshore, let's be clear about that. In a sense, it is dealing with people away from your shores, away from your borders, but what we're effectively doing is saying to some people, and it won't be all of them by any means, some of them, you're going to go to Rwanda, and that's effectively it.
So the very few people who go to Rwanda will in fact come back?
They will not come back. It's a one-way ticket, as far as I can understand from the Prime Minister.
So why are we then saying they're being processed over there? Well, there's no processing to be done if we're not letting them.
Well, the processing is whether or not they qualify for asylum. If they do, as the Australians do, say, OK, you can go where you like, you can stay in Rwanda, and the Rwandans have said they will accept them, but you're not going to come to Britain. And that is a way of discouraging people from making the attempt in the first place, if they know that ultimately they're not going to get into Britain. So that is a deterrence, if you like.
You can see the potential there for arguing this endlessly in courts, can't you?
Oh,
because
yes.
once an illegal migrant lands on a beach in Britain, there must be a legal, they must have human rights. And do those human rights that they then get, because we are hopefully a good country, are those human rights respected if we just put them on a plane to another country they've never even heard of?
Well, they have those human rights in France, and they have those human rights in every other country.
Yeah, but there are responsibility, aren't they, once they've landed on our shore?
Well, our responsibility, I'm not sure if it's our responsibility. It's up to us to decide whether or not we want them or not. And that, I think, is different to actually saying that, yes, anyone who makes their way to this country and says, I want to stay, should be given permission to stay automatically, which is what a lot of people are arguing. That is a nonsense.
Do you think this country, our country, is seen as an easy ride? It's just that if you talk to anyone about going to Australia, the assumption straight away is, good luck, you'll never get a work permit to go to Australia. Australians will only let the people in they deem they want, professionally or anything else. And clearly it has got around the immigration, the people who would immigrate illegally. Clearly it's got round that you will never get into Australia. In other words, Australia's seen as a tough ride. Are we seen as an easy one?
Funnily enough, Anne, that's precisely the argument that the politicians used, particularly Boris Johnson, when they kept referring to the Australian-type points-based system.
Yeah.
Firstly, our points-based system is nothing like the Australians, and the Australians also do have their problems with immigration. So some think that we are an easier option than the French, for example. We do tend to allow people to stay more easily. And a lot of those who come here across the channel have already tried and been rejected for asylum in other countries in the EU. I think that this problem is only going to be solved, actually, in the long run, if we work together. If the French, once their elections are over, are prepared actually to take people back as well. That's got to be part of the solution as well.
Oh, good luck with that.
Yeah, especially if Marine Le Pen gets in.
Yeah, Altmam from Migration Watch, good to see you.
Yes.
See you.
Let us know what you think. It's controversial.
It's controversial, and it gets more complicated the deeper you delve, doesn't it? Because you're dealing at the end of the day with human beings, aren't you?
GB Views at gbnews.uk. But don't go anywhere, we've got plenty more still to come, including preparations for the Queen's Jubilee. But first, let's have a look at the forecast.
Hello there, I'm Stephen Keats and I've got your latest Met Office forecast for you. The Easter weekend, not looking too bad for most of us. Some warmth to be had, 1 or 2 showers, but as we go on through the weekend, progressively turning a bit more unsettled from the west. But for this morning though, high pressure still hanging firm to the east of the UK, and that will exert an influence across much of the country actually. These weather fronts not really making much inroads from the west. That said though, for parts of Wales, southwest England, a bit damp, drizzly first thing this morning, some mist and murk around the coasts. Quite cloudy for Northern Ireland and the far west of Scotland too, and this is how it will remain for much of the day. Further east though, that's where we can see the best of the sunshine. The cloud tended to bubble up through the afternoon and 1 or 2 showers possible across eastern England. Across Northern Ireland though, if we do see a bit of brightness developing, we could see a few heavier, perhaps thundery showers this afternoon. 14 degrees there in Belfast. Contrast that with quite a warm 22 degrees in London, so likely to be the warmest day of the year. Showers across Northern Ireland then will tend to fizzle out through the evening, but 1 or 2 breaking out across parts of Northern England into southern Scotland. These will push their way further north this evening into Saturday morning to sit across eastern Scotland for the first part of Saturday. Elsewhere though, it is a drier picture, variable amounts of clouds and mist and murk returning to some southern and western coasts, probably clearest towards eastern England, and here the lowest temperatures 6 or 7 Celsius. So not a particularly cold start to Saturday then. Quite a bit of cloud around for some of us, some sunshine for others, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. Southern and western coast a bit grey and misty, but on the whole this will tend to burn back in to the coast, and even here I think we'll see some sunny spells at times for the day, but the best of the sunshine for the most part will be inland with some fair weather cloud bubbling up, maybe the odd shower, and again reasonable warmth to be had, 18 to 20 degrees, perhaps not quite as high as what we'll see today, but still pretty good for the time of year. So Saturday set fair then, the odd shower possible, on the whole some sunshine, progressively turning a bit cloudier, a bit cooler, a bit wetter as we move through Sunday and Monday, and as it does so those temperatures come back down to the mid-teens. Take care.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
8:27 morning to you. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Now, this is interesting gossip. It's emerged that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle went to see the Queen yesterday for the first time in more than 2 years as they made their way to the Invictus Games in the Netherlands. They popped into Windsor Castle.
Now, the couple haven't confirmed whether they're to attend the Queen's Jubilee, but celebrations have already started. A Commonwealth of Nations globe featuring stones collected from the UK's highest peaks has been unveiled at the Tower of London. It's going to stay there until the lighting of the principal beacon at Buckingham Palace on the 2nd of June.
Yeah, so lots to talk about. Our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, went to the ceremony, joins us now. Hello there, Cameron. First of all, Harry and Meghan, none of us knew they were visiting.
No, it's a complete shock to me as well. I was at Windsor Castle yesterday for the Royal Maundy service, a very important event in the royal calendar, and none of us on the royal beat were aware at all what was happening behind the castle gates. Now, Buckingham Palace's official line on this is that they will not comment on private matters, but from speaking to my sources inside the palace, as well as Prince Harry and Meghan's spokesperson, I can confirm that they did in fact meet the Queen yesterday afternoon at Windsor Castle. It's the first time it's believed that both Harry and Meghan have been back to the UK together since March 2020, the Commonwealth Day service just before the pandemic. That's how long ago we're talking. Then, of course, we had the Oprah interview with those bombshell allegations of a royal racist and being financially cut off by the firm, both of which have been denied by Buckingham Palace. But I suppose this meeting yesterday perhaps is a sign of them making amends. But we understand it was just a pit stop in the UK because the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are now travelling on to The Hague in the Netherlands to attend Prince Harry's Invictus Games, which starts tomorrow.
Doesn't it, that the news got out that Harry and Meghan were in town simply because onlookers who were there for the same reason for the Maundy service, onlookers recognised them. They saw them there. I don't know, do you know any more about where they would have been? Were they just crossing the road or opening a door or something?
Well, as you say, Anne, the Sun are reporting that pensioners were absolutely stunned when they saw Harry and Meghan wandering around the grounds of Windsor Castle following that Royal Maundy service, and they were apparently smiling and waving at them. And I think that's how the story got out, because I'm assuming some of the people at the service started to talk to journalists. But yes, it's just speculation. But I suppose it's a castle, it's a secure castle, so they can just walk them up around the grounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you were there for this special ceremony yesterday, Cameron. What happened?
Well, it was the Royal Maundy service, a very important event in the royal calendar. Usually it's Her Majesty the Queen that would go to the service and hand out Maundy money to local pensioners and people who have done good deeds and volunteering for the community. But because of the Queen's mobility issues, she decided she could not commit to the service. So Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall represented her at the service. It's the first time the two of them have done so, and I suppose it's another sign that Her Majesty is starting to hand more responsibility over to the next generation.
By the centre, quick march!
Pomp, ceremony, and pageantry. An ancient royal fortress begins protecting an important symbol of the Queen's 70 years of service. The Commonwealth of Nations globe will become a centrepiece in the lighting of the beacons, a key event taking place over the Platinum Jubilee weekend in June. Pageant master Bruno Peake explains why he thinks it's important to mark the Queen's milestone.
She's the longest British-serving monarch in history, and today we created a small piece of history ourselves by bringing the Commonwealth of Nations globe into the Tower of London for safekeeping until it's used as part of the lighting of the principal beacon at Buckingham Palace.
The Commonwealth of Nations globe was paraded through the grounds of the Tower of London, escorted by a 70-piece marching band of the Royal Air Force Air Cadets. The Queen's pageant master presented the globe to the Tower of London's governor. Platinum, diamond, gold and silver feature in its design, representing Her Majesty's 4 Jubilees. The stones in the crown which surrounds the globe signify the closeness of the 4 nations of the UK and were collected from the top of the 4 highest peaks in Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales and England. Chief Yeoman Warder Pete McGowran, along with his fellow beefeaters, have the job of guarding the globe.
It is a big responsibility that we don't take lightly, and obviously what we do as a day-to-day job here, looking after the crown jewels, is it goes along with that.
It remains a secret just how the globe will be used in the lighting of the beacons, but we know over 2,000 of them will be lit by communities all over Britain, as well as 54 Commonwealth capitals. The Commonwealth of Nations globe, a symbol of unity across the world, will be on display here at the White Tower before it is brought to Buckingham Palace for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations in June. Cameron Walker, GB News at the Tower of London.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love the lighting of a beacon, and we're going to do a load of that, aren't we? The first one is going to be at Buckingham Palace, by the sound of it.
But do you know what, though? I remember it happening in the past. I don't remember actually sort of being able to see them anywhere. Have you ever seen the beacon? We like these beacons. Do you ever see them?
I know why I like the lighting of a beacon, because I used to live in Malvern, near the Malvern Hills.
Ah, so you could see it.
And see the big beacon. The biggest hill was the beacon, and we always went up to the beacon on a day like today. Actually, like Easter, family would go for a walk up the beacon. And I remember from being very small asking what a beacon is. Why is it called a beacon? And it's medieval beacon, I think, that one. But we've got so many of them up and down the land, and they all have a story to tell. But when they are lit as a chain, it's a wonderful thing.
It'd be very nice. I'll tell you what, with drones these days,
might be able to get some good shots.
Yeah, that'd be quite nice. If you've got a drone, have a look. I quite fancy. Do you fancy a drone? Have you got a drone?
No. Drone?
Yes.
Well, yes, actually. Two. But no, it's only because one of my sons is very keen on them, but they are weird things. Only little ones that keep going wrong.
Yeah, well, you only need the little ones now, don't you? They're very effective and efficient.
They said that we were going to have parcels delivered by drone, but we haven't yet, have we?
Hasn't yet. I think they've done some trials in the States, but it hasn't happened over here yet. That's the way forward.
It will be. One day our towns and cities will have lots of little drones going all over the place. Because already yours has got the delivery.
Got little robots.
Little robots. Robots and drones.
Something flying into the garden would be very nice. Just see the look.
Well, as long as it's not a camera.
Just to see the look on the cat's face.
Yeah, as long as it's not a tabloid newspaper's camera. No. I think that's the problem, isn't it? That's the worry.
But anyway, we'll tackle that when
it comes to it. We'll have netting over our tops of our gardens. Crazy, isn't it?
Anyway, don't go anywhere. We've got plenty more coming up for you in just a minute, including a full look at the papers.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
You are are watching to. Do you know, ladies and gents, this is day 8 for me of getting up at 3 in the morning, and my brain is starting to fail.
It's starting to go. You can hear it, can't you? Yeah.
You're watching to and listening with Breakfast with Steve and Anne. It's all going pear-shaped. There you go. I'll tell you what, I'll sleep well today.
I tell you what, we'll stop and rewind that, except we can't because we're live across your TV on the UK. No, I'm doing it now.
Let's go to 30 seconds of black and silence. That'd be excellent. OK, let's go through the papers anyway. We'll try that.
That's a good idea. Let's look
work.
at the Times. Times reporting that Boris Johnson wants the first flight taking Channel migrants to Central Africa to leave in the next month.
The Guardian says plans to send Channel migrants to Rwanda have been widely condemned, with critics calling the plan inhumane.
The Express takes a favourable view towards the PM's Rwandan migration scheme, noting the vow to end the Channel migrant crisis.
The Mirror criticises the scheme, calling it inhumane and doubting that it will work.
So let's go through the papers now. Joining us this morning, Chief Executive of Demos. Now, I'm not going to do all that again because I got it wrong last time. Let's just say hello to Joanna Williams and Polly Mackenzie. Lovely to see you both. What are we starting with? Natural births.
Ooh. I'm an expert on this one.
It's made him a bit queasy.
That'll be me. So this is a story which is following on from the big scandal which has rumbled along in the news really for about a month now. It was a report into what was going on with women giving birth at the Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital, and a really high rate of babies dying essentially in childbirth. Absolutely horrific treatment of the women who'd given birth at these hospitals.
But because of the culture of, you must do it naturally.
Exactly, and it's that culture which is really continuing, and job adverts which have been published since that report, the Ockenden report, was released just a couple of weeks ago, are still emphasising that they want to recruit midwives who, and I quote from one of the adverts, demonstrates a commitment to promoting normal birth.
Normal.
Exactly, and I'm really glad that you picked up on that word, Anne, because to me that word normal is really loaded. To me, what's being implied by that, what's being meant is a vaginal delivery. But to me, what should be a normal birth should be a safe birth. That should be
what's right at the time.
Exactly. Yeah. The aim should be to have a safe mother and baby.
I'm staggered they're allowed to word the advert in that way. Because what they're showing is they're not just saying we just want good qualified midwives. They're saying they want midwives with a certain attitude, really.
Exactly, and it becomes a very political thing. Essentially, they're asking for people who have bought into these particular values around natural childbirth, and like I say, the whole idea that this is a normal way to give birth. I think it really stigmatises women who, for whatever reason, weren't able to have a vaginal delivery, had a caesarean section through. Even to say kind of through no fault of their own kind of implies that there's something not normal about that.
I completely agree. I think, what's normal for humans as a species, absent medical intervention, is for lots of women and babies to die. Yeah. I know that I would be dead and my daughter would be dead and my sons wouldn't exist if it hadn't been for medical intervention. I failed induction. 3 miserable days, I had an emergency caesarean, and that kept us both alive. And that's really good. Yeah. And I should not be stigmatised, but it's not about me. It's about the reality that humans are just really poorly engineered. And it's amazing that we have such privileged access to brilliant doctors and midwives, and we can keep women safe. And that absolutely should be the goal. It's wonderful, of course. I remember seeing on One Born Every Minute, the childbirth show, a 16-year-old who had, not great really that she was pregnant and having a baby, but nevertheless, she had half a paracetamol, got the baby out in 3 hours. If that works for you, brilliant, amazing. Some women have the hips for it. Some babies seem perfectly designed. Lots of us aren't, and there's nothing wrong with that because we can be brilliant mums, and the kids are.
It's just as you said. Actually, a normal birth is risky, and as you said, without doctors and nurses and wonderful midwives around, a lot of people would die. But I just cannot. But I can't believe they're allowed to say it. It's steam coming out of my ears now.
Well, I think for a number of years now, the idea of having a midwife-led unit has kind of been all the rage, and it's been promoted to women as being more natural, more kind of of holistic, kinder, nicer. But it can mean, in some cases, that the doctor or the consultant, if as an emergency, is actually many miles away, perhaps needing to get a taxi. If I was in an emergency situation, I would not want to be like worrying about the roadworks and the doctor getting delayed in coming to see me.
Well, it's one subject I feel slightly out of my depth.
Sorry.
I don't know why.
That's why I chose it.
Well, no, thank you very much indeed. To The Guardian, Polly, looking at these waiting times for routine treatments on the NHS. Talked about this a lot yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, you know, The Guardian are now saying that this is basically as high as it's been since the mid-90s. 1 in 10 almost adults is on a waiting list for NHS treatment. I just think these problems are going to get worse and worse, and we haven't even begun to work out what we as a country want to do about it. You know, we've got this new tax that's supposedly going into the NHS. We put the £350 million extra after Brexit into the NHS, and yet still waiting lists are going up and up. And at the core of it, I think, is a complete failure of workforce planning. We don't have the staff. People are burned out by the pandemic. Unless we address that, get more people into training, we're never going to get over the hump of this.
I think that's a really important point that Polly's making there, because I think for too often, whenever problems, and let's face it, these problems with the NHS crop up so routinely, you can almost set your clock by it. But the solution always seems to be, we need more money, we need more money. I think there is a bit of a realisation amongst the general public now that you could just pour infinite sums of money almost into the NHS and it wouldn't actually get to the root cause of the problems.
No, you need better planning, don't you?
Yeah.
Certainly with recruitment and
reform is a very difficult thing to do.
Certainly.
It takes a brave politician. And then when they do something which they think is brave, they mess it up. The whole Jeremy Hunt thing has proved to be a bit of a disaster, hasn't it?
But it's also interesting that whatever you do to the NHS, people say that it's privatisation. I was involved in 2012 reforms and people said that they were privatisation. The government is now basically repealing all of that legislation, replacing it with something completely different. People say that that's privatisation. And I genuinely don't understand, because it means you can't have a real conversation about a good way to run the health service, because everybody just always says the same thing, which isn't even based in reality.
Yeah. Let's have a look at Elon Musk, everyone's favourite entrepreneur.
So he's put in a £33 billion or $43 billion bid to buy Twitter. I think
why he wants it.
Well, do you know what? I don't think it actually matters, because I think when you've got that much money, you know, he can buy Twitter in the same way I might go and buy myself a new dress from Marks and Spencer's. I think this is probably a bit of loose change for him. But I think what's really interesting about the story is how everybody's freaking out in response to it. And the reason why they're freaking out is because Elon Musk has come out and made some statements in favour of free speech. He's described himself as a free speech absolutist, and he says he wants to kind of row back on the censorship that's on Twitter and on social media. And, you know, I think kind of good luck to him, because I think there is censorship on Twitter. I think that's absolutely for sure. The fact that President Trump was taken off Twitter, you know, that's absolutely unprecedented. The democratically elected president of the kind of free world.
When you look at some of the stuff when President Trump was saying things which were categorically not true. And as a man of tremendous influence, that's problematic, isn't it?
Well, the thing is then, what you need people to challenge that and take it up. And what really strikes me about the alarmism over Elon Musk taking over Twitter, and I chose the story in the Daily Mirror because the Daily Mirror kind of puts in as its subheadline, kind of shock horror. This might help Trump back into the White House. You think, you know, are your arguments to challenge Trump really so pathetic? You know, have you really got no arguments that can take him on intellectually or take him on politically? You need censorship. You think censorship's the only
But Elon Musk himself has shown a certain disdain for the truth or for slander and libel, because he has been outrageous in some of his comments. I think particularly about the diver, the British diver, who was part of the team that rescued the boys from the cave.
No, I agree with that.
I mean, he said some outrageous things, and he wants to own the very platform.
Well, what's interesting to me is he says that what we need is absolute free speech in order to improve people's trust in Twitter. Now, that doesn't really make sense to me, because absolute free speech, a reasonable point of view, but that means that people will go into Twitter knowing there might be lies on there might be misinformation. So as a trusted platform, that's more of a problem for me. I think the reality is we get very confused. We think of things like Twitter as some sort of piece of democratic infrastructure that therefore must have the absolute rules of democracy and free speech on them. But actually what it is a private company that should probably be engineered to meet the needs of its users and its customers, its advertisers. And actually what its users want is a more community guide rules where they want misinformation removed, where they want racism removed, and essentially it's that thing of being able as a private company to meet the needs of your customers, and you wouldn't expect a shopping centre to say, oh, free speech, anybody can do everywhere. Come in and punch people. Come in and shout abuse.
Exactly.
The point is, if you're running a shopping centre, you want to create an environment that's welcoming and works for the people who you serve. The same should be true. Exactly. The same should be true. Same for Twitter or Facebook. Actually, a rules-based environment is what works for the majority, and that's how you run a private, profitable company.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. I mean, for one thing, there are millions of Twitter users in countries all around the world, so to talk of them as one kind of homogenous group, this is what they want. Do you know what? I mean, I use Twitter. I know other people who use Twitter, and we disagree fundamentally on lots of different things. And to me, that's the beauty of a platform like Twitter. I also think it's not good enough, really, to say, well, these are private companies, so they can set their own rules, because so these social media companies have become so influential, so powerful. They've effectively become the public square. They provide a voice, and they get reported on so often in the media nowadays. What people are tweeting becomes the story. But where I do agree is that I'm not, as somebody who is very, very pro-free speech, I would describe myself as a free speech absolutist. I don't have faith in Elon Musk, and this is also why I laugh at all the panic that's going on here, because the idea that Elon Musk is going to create this kind of free speech paradise, if you like, is not going to happen. He has his own whims.
Anyone who wants to call himself an absolutist, anyway, is a bit sort of...
But fundamentally, if you
Joanna.
If you
does. We're out of time, ladies. I'm really sorry. We are. I'm going to curb your free speech because we're out of time. We'll be back in the next hour where Joanna, you can tell us about Marlene Klass and her sparkling new jewellery, which you will want to know all about, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, now you've mentioned it.
But it is 8:49. Time for On Your Doorstep.
So on your doorstep today is GBNews Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley, and she's in the glorious town of Selby. Actually, is it a town or a city, Selby? Anna.
Good morning, Anne and Stephen. It's a town, and we've come here to Selby Abbey at the moment, very apt for Good Friday and the bank holiday Easter weekend. So we're just going to speak to the curator here of the Abbey. Good morning. He's certainly a busy weekend for you, isn't it?
It is, but it's a real privilege to welcome you here today.
Thank you for having us, and just introduce yourself for our GB News viewers and listeners.
So my name's Dan, and I'm the curate here at Selby Abbey.
So obviously Good Friday today, Easter weekend. What is the message of Easter?
So yeah, it's a busy one for us in the church. Good Friday might seem a bit strange that we call it good. It's the day that we commemorate the fact that Jesus died. But what makes it good is the fact that on Easter Sunday, which we will celebrate in just a couple of days' time, Jesus rose again from the dead and gave us a way to mend a broken relationship with God and a way to mend any broken relationships in community as well.
And Easter is all about sort of rebirth, isn't it? New beginnings. What can people take from it if they've not necessarily got a faith?
So I think when we talk about the new life of Christ and opportunities for mending relationships and, I guess, a fresh start, that's something that feels applicable to anybody of any faith or indeed of none.
And at the moment, we've got, the Ukraine war going on. We're hearing about refugees going to Rwanda. There's the cost of living crisis. What can people take from the community and from that coming togetherness this weekend?
Sure, it's an incredibly difficult time for a lot of people, and I wouldn't want to minimise that. But I do think that the church offers good news. And I think that by coming together as community and by supporting each other, we see some of God's economy of abundance as opposed to so much of the difficulty that we do see at the moment.
And what is the church doing for the community? I understand there's a food bank scheme that you've got here to help people that are struggling.
Yes, so churches together in Selby work with our local food bank. We also work with Selby Community Fridge, which takes waste food from supermarkets, looking to reduce food waste, but also to make free food available to anybody who needs it.
And it's a community that comes together, I've seen.
Yeah, I think so. The people here, I only started in June, and I've found the people here to be incredibly welcoming and really encouraging, really.
Thanks so much, Dan. It is certainly something that we've had this morning. We've had a big welcome in Selby. And just to show you a little bit of this abbey, it's more than 950 years old. It's well known in Selby. Beautiful stained glass window just behind us here in the choir area. It's certainly worth a visit to this abbey if you are in the area.
Lovely stuff. It looks beautiful.
It does.
Thank you very much indeed, Anna.
I love me a stained glass window.
Oh,
That's something I used to do with the kids, actually. We used to make stained glass windows.
Did you?
Not real ones, but out of tissue paper, you know.
Well, that sounds
You cut wonderful shapes. And you could do this in the car. It makes a mess of the car, but, you know. And then you glue all lovely little bits of coloured tissue paper and you put it on the window and you've made a stained glass window.
Yes, well, that is perhaps what Rihanna's going to be doing with her little bomb when it arrives. Let's get the latest with Stephanie Tetchy. Good morning.
Good morning, Stephen and
You look fabulous, I have to say. You just look blooming fabulous.
We all look fabulous. We just make this happen.
You always just sparkle. But are you taking inspiration from Rihanna?
Gosh.
I tell you what, she's breaking the mould a little bit when it comes to style and pregnancy.
She really is. Since she announced she was pregnant from January, she has been out constantly with her bump out. She's heavily pregnant, as you can see in this video stills here. And this week, she's cover of Vogue magazine.
That's quite something, that one.
That is one heck of an outfit.
She's going to be on Vogue magazine talking about how her pregnancy's been. Obviously, she's expecting her first child with the rapper A$AP Rocky. But in the interview, she talks about how she wants to redefine what pregnancy fashion means. Because, you know, most women want to cover their bump. And what do you think? Do you think the bump should be covered?
When I was pregnant, in those days, you just wore voluminous tents to try and pretend the bump wasn't there.
Yeah.
Then you go through a phase. It was Demi Moore. Do you remember?
And she went.
She, showed everybody this incredible bump, and now everybody's trying to out-bump each other now. But that outfit that we saw Rihanna in, if you're listening on the radio, all I can say is she looked like James and the Giant Peach.
She really did.
She's just an orange thing.
Yeah, I think it's a Versace outfit, but Versace, yes, pregnancy and Versace, big bump out there. But she was saying when she found out she was pregnant, she refused to go to the maternity section. She was like, why should I have to hide my body when it's doing all these amazing things? So Rihanna is taking one for the pregnant women out there.
I sort of think, my dad always said there's nothing more feminine than a pregnant lady.
Yes, but did he mean voluminous tent, or did he mean what Rihanna's now
he always
wearing?
sort of said there's something just so beautiful about pregnancy. So why not show it off?
Yeah, it's that glowing thing where you just want to show your beauty off. But I think most women, obviously I haven't had children, but I know most women, they feel awful during pregnancy. And it's like seeing someone like...
No, I had a whale of a time.
Oh, did
I
you?
looked like a whale most of the time.
Well, yeah, but that's not... It's like, why? What? There's nothing wrong with that, is there?
Some people have a bad time.
Yeah.
I mean, the Duchess of Cambridge is meant to have a particularly bad time with sickness and everything.
Yeah.
But I quite agree. Your body is doing amazing things, so why not celebrate
Flaunt
that?
it if you've got it.
Yeah.
I think so. You flaunt everything. You're flaunting today. If you're listening on the radio, download the app and have a look, because Stephanie looks sensational today.
Thank you.
Sadly, we're out of time. It's a bit of a tight one, this one.
I'll be back.
We'll be back next hour,
I'll be back, like Arnold.
Lovely. OK, stay with us. We've got plenty more to come for you, including the very latest on the Easter travel chaos. Don't go anywhere. You probably won't be.
Hello there, I'm Stephen Keats and I've got your latest Met Office forecast for you. The Easter weekend, not looking too bad for most of us. Some warmth to be had, 1 or 2 showers, but as we go on through the weekend, progressively turning a bit more unsettled from the west. But for this morning, though, high pressure still hanging firm to the east of the UK, and that will exert an influence across much of the country, actually. These weather fronts not really making much inroads from the west. That said, though, for parts of Wales, southwest England, a bit damp, drizzly first thing this morning, some mist and murk around the coasts. Quite cloudy for Northern Ireland and the far west of Scotland, too. And this is how it will remain for much of the day. Further east, though, that's where we can see the best of the sunshine. The cloud tended to bubble up through the afternoon and 1 or 2 showers possible across eastern England. Across Northern Ireland, though, if we do see a bit of brightness developing, we could see a few heavier, perhaps thundery showers this afternoon. 14 degrees there in Belfast. Contrast that with a warm 22 degrees in London, so likely to be the warmest day of the year. Showers across Northern Ireland then will tend to fizzle out through the evening, but 1 or 2 breaking out across parts of Northern England into southern Scotland. These will push their way further north this evening into Saturday morning to sit across eastern Scotland for the first part of Saturday. Elsewhere, though, it is a drier picture. Variable amounts of clouds and mist and murk returning to some southern and western coasts, probably clearest towards eastern England. And here, the lowest temperatures, 6 or 7 Celsius. So not a particularly cold start to Saturday then. Quite a bit of cloud around for some of us, some sunshine for others, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. Southern and western coast a bit grey and misty. On the whole, this will tend to burn back in to the coast, and even here I think we'll see some sunny spells at times through the day. But the best of the sunshine, for the most part, will be inland with some fair weather cloud bubbling up, maybe the odd shower. And again, reasonable warmth to be had, 18 to 20 degrees, perhaps not quite as high as what we'll see today, but still pretty good for the time of year. So Saturday set fair then, the odd shower possible, on the whole some sunshine, progressively turning a bit cloudier, a bit cooler, a bit wetter as we move through Sunday and Monday. And as it does so, those temperatures come back down to the mid-teens. Take care.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The Great British Getaway. Millions of Brits are expected to take to the roads this Good Friday in what is predicted to be the busiest travel day of the year. Perhaps you're one of them.
But meanwhile, rail passengers have been warned of delays to their journeys as Network Rail carries out a number of engineering works.
Good morning. It's 9 o'clock on the 15th of April. It's Good Friday, so happy Easter. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
Now, if you're getting behind the wheel this morning, heading anywhere, or at least trying to, don't forget you can take us with us because we're on your radio DAB+ as well. Coming up for you.
Harry and Meghan have flown to the UK to hold a secret meeting with the Queen at Windsor ahead of their appearance at the Invictus Games in The Hague.
The Prime Minister wants to see the first migrants processed in Rwanda within 6 weeks as part of a scheme to curb channel crossings.
And it's 33 years to the day when 97 men, women and children lost their lives in the Hillsborough disaster. To mark the anniversary, the Liverpool Lighthouse Choir have recorded Abide With Me.
Abide
It's very moving, very touching.
It is.
I think.
can't believe it's 33 years. That's absolutely incredible. But it is something that we should all remember, I suppose.
We should. It's very strange, isn't it, with these sort of things, when there are a lot of people now who just weren't alive when it happened.
And then you have to explain to them what happened and how devastating it was. And even more devastating, the fact that the families of those 97 have had to fight for so long. Not just the families of the 97, it's almost anyone who was there have had to fight for so long to have the truth told, because so many lies were told about what happened on that day.
It's interesting that Andy Burnham, amongst others, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, they're launching a campaign now to mean that everyone involved in this sort of incident, should it happen again, those who are sort of directly affected, can have legal representation paid for. Because I think part of the issue with this, with the investigations, there's been 2 sort of inquiries into Hillsborough, was that a lot of the victims and victims' families can't get, having to fund their own lawyers for a lot of it, which obviously is hugely problematic. So when there's a tragedy of this nature, all those legal costs should be covered, which would make a difference.
And some of the terrible lies that were told, particularly about the fans' behaviour, that they almost brought this disaster upon themselves, they were behaving so badly. It was never true, but lies can keep going, even though later on inquiries find that it was never true, they were always lies. But still some people believe it. And so when certain things are said, you can never quite undo them all.
No. And isn't it worse nowadays with the internet and Twitter and things that we're talking about today? Because those things, not only do they not quite go away, they're sort of imprinted on the internet
forever.
and discoverable forever, which is problematic. Now, the other thing, we want you to get in touch this morning about travel. If you're going to go away, if you're planning on going anywhere this weekend, this Easter weekend, perhaps you've got commitments that you absolutely have to stick to, but unfortunately, it is going to be pretty grim for an awful lot of people.
I think if I'd had plans this weekend, I'd have probably found a reason, and this is a good reason. I'm just not going to be able to get to you. I'm not going to be able to travel. It's going to be hell.
Yes.
I hope it isn't, but I think it's going to be for a lot of people.
Yeah, millions of drivers hitting the roads this Good Friday. It is thought to be the busiest travel day of the Easter weekend, and train passengers have also been warned of more delays. Network Rail continuing work on multiple lines across the UK. West Coast Main Line pretty much shut from Milton Keynes downwards, it would seem.
Euston Station shut.
Totally
a whole
closed.
station in the capital shut. Our reporters Ellie Costello and Will Hollis now both join us to give us their perspectives on this, updates for both train and car travel. Now, Will is right by the M1 in Nottinghamshire, so let's go to you first, Will, if we may. It doesn't look too busy behind you, I have to say.
Good morning. Yes, when you spoke to me a couple of hours ago, it was really quite quiet on this stretch of the M1, junction 26, near Nuttall in Nottinghamshire. It is starting to pick up a lot more. At the start of today, 7 o'clock, when I last spoke to you, a lot of HGVs, maybe a lot of smaller cars. What I've been noticing more and more over the last half an hour that I've been watching the cars go past, a lot of caravans, a lot of camper vans, a lot of people certainly taking that advice to get out on the roads as early as you can. You've been advised to get out before 9 a.m. You've missed that mark, sir, if you're still watching GBNews at home, but you can still get out on the roads fairly early to miss a lot of the troubles. Of course, 22 million people expected to travel for leisure journeys, so holidays, going to see family, those sorts of trips over the bank holiday weekend. But 4 million people are going to be 4 million journeys are going to be made today alone. You can expect to have some problems if you're going towards the M6, the M25, or of course the M20 leading to Dover. Why is this such a big problem today? Of course, it's a problem every Easter, it's a problem every bank holiday, especially when you're starting to get a bit of sun after the darker spring months and the darker winter months. But also we've had the pent-up demand been building from the pandemic. We also know that we've got problems, of course, with international travel and a lot of delays, so maybe more people are deciding to have those local holidays, those staycations. But of course the advice is to check your tyres, to check your vehicles before you do go out, because that will save you breaking down, and as much as you can travel at those quieter times before 9 a.m. and after 7 p.m. in the evening.
In the car and a bag of crisps or something in case you're stuck there for hours, I tell you. Meanwhile, Ellie, Perhaps then, if the roads are going to be so grim this weekend, we should let the train take the strain.
Well, if you do, you might not be in for much luck, Stephen. It's going to be really disrupted on the trains throughout the country. And if you're trying to get abroad as well, perhaps on the Eurostar, that could be difficult as well. I'm outside St Pancras now, which is the home of the Eurostar. You can get the Eurostar here from to Amsterdam, to Paris, to Bruges. But if you are, do make sure that you arrive at least 90 minutes before the departure of your train. The 9 o'clock service has just left to go to Paris, but I was walking through the station just after 7 o'clock this morning, and those queues were already forming. It is taking a lot longer than usual to get people through those queues. It's a mixture of low staffing numbers and also COVID documentation, which is leading to those delays. So if you are trying to get away on the Eurostar this weekend, do make sure you arrive in plenty of time. It's actually set to be the busiest weekend for Eurostar in the past 2 years. They've actually put on a record, a COVID record, 14 crossings to France from Britain today. So it is going to be very, very busy, but do make sure that you leave that extra time to get through. And if you are travelling by train, you're trying to avoid those roads, do be aware that there is a lot of disruption on the rail too. Network Rail are using the Easter weekend to get along with a lot of their engineering projects. 530 individual projects will be taking place this weekend, so you can imagine the kind of disruption that we are going to see. The UK's busiest station, London Waterloo, anything west of Staines will be disrupted. It's that lovely pretty route down to Devon. If you're heading down to the southwest of the country, your journey could be disrupted, so do be aware of that. And not too far from here is actually Euston Station, one of the busiest stations in London. That's closed entirely from Good Friday to Easter Monday. They're trying to do some track improvements there. So do obviously check your journey before you travel by train. And if you are trying to get away to the airport and you're going to get a train to the airport, do check that, because the 3 busiest airports in the UK, Heathrow, Gatwick and Stansted, they are all going to be disconnected from public transport links over the Easter weekend. So do check. You might be on a replacement bus, or you may have to go a different route. But if you are trying to get to the airport and you're going by train, do make sure you leave that extra time. So I think the message is to leave that extra time, to be patient and to stay safe when you're making those journeys this Easter weekend.
OK, Ellie Costello and Will Hollis, thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
I was just, as Ellie was chatting there, I was just trying to work out what would be worse, sat in a train that's not moving or sat in a car that's not moving.
If it's
what
not,
do you think?
I think they're both awful, because the main thing, if they're not moving, you're not getting to where you want to be. And it is going to be a nice day today. It's going to be the warmest day yet.
Warmest day of the weekend, certainly, yeah.
And, that's the trouble. It could be warm in the car, it could be warm in the train. The main thing is if you're not getting where you need to go. So maybe change your mind and not go at all. I don't know.
If you are changing your mind, get in touch.
Yeah.
GBViews at GBnews.uk. And if you're listening on the radio and you're in the car, or well, actually not on the train, but if you're in the car listening on the radio and you've actually thought, right, this is it, we're going to do a U-turn, go back home, it's not worth it, I'd love to hear your thoughts this morning.
Yeah,
Might be a bit of a long shot getting hold of someone doing that, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know who's watching or who's listening to us at the moment. That's why we always like to know. Shall we bring you up to date with the very latest news headlines then? US defence officials say the loss of a Russian ship in the Black Sea will be a big blow for their naval capabilities. The Moskva sank after Ukrainian forces claimed to have hit it with 2 anti-ship missiles on Wednesday. However, the Russians put it slightly differently. They say the vessel went down after ammunition exploded on board.
Dozens of Palestinians have been injured after clashes with Israeli police at Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of the holiest sites in the city. Officers attempted to disperse a large crowd, some wearing masks, who authorities said were throwing rocks at the compound after morning prayer. The Palestinian Red Crescent says at least 59 people have been injured.
And the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have met in secret with the Queen at Windsor Castle. Harry and Meghan, who've not been in the UK together for a long time, actually, and they weren't with their children, but they did want to apparently meet up with the Queen, and it's thought Prince Charles as well. They made their visit ahead of their appearance, which we knew about, at the Invictus Games in the Netherlands, which will be later.
Now, since February, we've been covering the devastating effects of the war in Ukraine and seen many pledge to fight against Russian forces, but none quite like Nikolai Nizolov. Just 19 years old, a Cambridge student and a Ukrainian, Nikolai's pledged to serve his country, even if it means taking his exams on the front line.
Well, we're joined now by Nikolai before he heads off to the Ukraine later today. A very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. You've been out in Lviv already, haven't you, doing some training?
Yes, I was doing training for 2 weeks.
Training to be a fighter?
Training to be a drone pilot and medic for my specialist unit of 9.
Oh, I see. Now, you are Ukrainian yourself, but you've been studying here in Britain for how long?
I've been here since August 2013.
Right. So a long time, yet the pull for you to go back home and play your part must be extraordinarily strong.
It's my friends and family out there. I have to join them.
You've been speaking to them, you've been able to speak to them. What have they been telling you?
Of course, it's scary when it's people you care for that are telling you that they hear explosions really close to them, that they see the military bases exploding from Russian rocket fire. But that's just the reality of war. I can't stop to focus on feelings these days.
Yeah, so obviously you speaking to them about these sort of things and then telling you. At the same time, if you said to them, I'm going to come back out and I'm going to fight, I'm going to do my bit, what did they say to you? I can imagine they probably didn't want you to come.
That is exactly what they said. My grandmother was very adamant she didn't want me to come.
So why do it then? There's clearly you feel a need to do it, but what your family is saying to you is whatever is going on, we want you at least to stay safe, and you are, of course, going to be putting yourself in considerable danger.
I consider being Ukrainian a very big part of me, and if Ukraine falls, that part of me dies, and I'm not letting that happen.
My goodness, those are strong words, but that seems to be what so many Ukrainians we speak to feel that strongly about your country. Even though you're here, you're studying in Cambridge, you clearly feel that tie very, very strongly to your country.
I do, yes. No, as every Ukrainian is.
Mm.
How prepared are you for? You talked about the reality of war a moment ago. How prepared are you for the reality of war? Because heading towards the front line is going to be like something you've never seen before.
I'm sure I'll adapt quickly and do what I'm meant to do, complete my mission.
I'm sure, again, I know if I were a member of your family, one of the things I would say to you is, A, please don't come, don't put yourself in danger, but also, B, what about your studies? Look how far you've got. You're studying in one of the best universities in the world. Don't put that in danger either. How can you possibly continue your studies whilst you're fighting a war?
It's quite a nice change of scenery to watch a lecture here and there. And I'm sure I'll have plenty of time after the war to catch up before next year starts.
Do you have any understanding of, I mean, you say you're going to be operating drones and things, but do you understand any more about where your deployment is going to be?
No, the situation is so fluid that we don't know where we'll be deployed and where we'll be most useful.
And you appreciate, do you, that you could be out there for, I mean, let's hope not, but it could be a considerable period of time.
That's just the reality I've got to face right now.
How do you read the situation at the moment, talking to friends and family and obviously watching the news and going online? How do you read things at the moment? Do you think the Ukrainians will ultimately win?
Of course. There's no chance. Russian army doesn't stand a chance. They don't have the morale their equipment is outdated. It's not been well maintained. The Ukrainians have the technological know-how of how to conduct large-scale military operations, and I'm sure we will be able to de-siege our cities soon.
There is real concern about President Putin. I mean, already concerns about him using chemical weapons in Mariupol, concerns that as he re-establishes himself in the east, that may become a tactic to use these weapons which do cause widespread death and destruction.
It is a very significant risk. We have seen it in Syria. They have done it before. That's why I just had to buy gas masks for my unit.
And what about, I mean, you're in Cambridge at the moment. I don't know if there are many Ukrainians, people like you, in Cambridge. Are you going to go out there all on your own, or do you have friends to go with?
I'm going out there on my own, but I've made friends there in my unit, so it is all right.
And so when does this deployment start?
Hopefully on Tuesday and Wednesday, somewhere around that time. It all depends on donations from people with my fundraiser. I've raised enough money to buy a 4x4 vehicle and to source a van from Germany, but we're still quite in need of a lot of money. The goal is 150,000 to fully equip our unit with the drones that we need, and we're only at about £8,000.
Okay, so there may be lots of people watching at the moment who might want to help. How do they get to your
If you
your
go on
page,
my
your
social
fund me
media,
page?
my Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, the details of the fundraiser are there with my PayPal and bank details.
Okay, I'll bet. My
Okay,
goodness.
all right, Nikolai, good to talk to you this morning. Stay as safe
Stay
as you
safe.
can.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Thank you. If you were his mum, wouldn't you? Oh, wouldn't you say, please don't come, but look at the strength of loyalty to the country and to...
I just think it's
breaks your heart.
2 weeks of training. I mean, look, I can understand his desire to do it and his passion to do it. It's putting himself in that danger, which concerns me immensely. But what can you do? It's a war zone in his country, and his family and friends are there.
Yeah.
So what can you do?
In fact, it's highly admirable, isn't it? But just terrifying.
Terrifying.
At the same time.
Scary. Let's just hope he does keep safe. Look, we've got plenty more still to come for you, including more on the Harry and Meghan's secret visit to see Her Majesty. That's in a couple of minutes.
Hello there, I'm Stephen Keats and I've got your latest Met Office forecast for you. The Easter weekend, not looking too bad for most of us. Some warmth to be had, 1 or 2 showers, but as we go on through the weekend, progressively turning a bit more unsettled from the west. But for this morning though, high pressure still hanging firm to the east of the UK, and that'll exert an influence across much of the country actually. These weather fronts not really making much inroads from the west. That said though, for parts of Wales, southwest England, a bit damp, drizzly first thing this morning, some mist and murk around the coasts. Quite cloudy for Northern Ireland and the far west of Scotland too, and this is how it will remain for much of the day. Further east though, that's where we can see the best of the sunshine. The cloud tended to bubble up through the afternoon and 1 or 2 showers possible across eastern England. Across Northern Ireland though, if we do see a bit of brightness developing, we could see a few heavier, perhaps thundery showers this afternoon. 14 degrees there in Belfast. Contrast that with quite a warm 22 degrees in London, so likely to be the warmest day of the year. Showers across Northern Ireland then will tend to fizzle out through the evening, but 1 or 2 breaking out across parts of Northern England into southern Scotland. These will push their way further north this evening into Saturday morning to sit across eastern Scotland for the first part of Saturday. Elsewhere though, it is a drier picture, variable amounts of clouds and mist and murk returning to some southern and western coasts, probably clearest towards eastern England. And here the lowest temperatures 6 or 7 Celsius. So not a particularly cold start to Saturday then. Quite a bit of cloud around for some of us, some sunshine for others, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. Southern and western coast a bit grey and misty, but on the whole this will tend to burn back in to the coast, and even here I think it will see some sunny spells at times of the day. But the best of the sunshine for the most part will be inland with some fair weather cloud bubbling up, maybe the odd shower, and again reasonable warmth to be had, 18 to 20 degrees, perhaps not quite as high as what we'll see today, but still pretty good for the time of year. So Saturday set fair then, the odd shower possible, on the whole some sunshine, progressively turning a bit cloudier, a bit cooler, a bit wetter as we move through Sunday and Monday, and as it does so those temperatures will come back down to the mid-teens. Take care.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
(9:23), very good morning to you. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Now, it's emerged that Prince Harry and Meghan went to see the Queen yesterday for the first time in several years as they made their way to the Invictus Games in the Netherlands.
Now, the couple have not confirmed whether they're going to attend the Queen's Jubilee, but celebrations have, of course, already started.
Joining us now, Richard Fitzwilliams, royal commentator par excellence.
Is he there?
There he is. Hello there. Good morning. This was a surprise to everybody.
This was certainly a surprise. It was hinted at when there was a statement which, this was absolutely unbelievable, the fact that neither Harry nor Meghan attended the Thanksgiving service for Prince Philip at Westminster Abbey, but there was the mention that Harry hoped to see the Queen, and this was clearly felt that obviously going to the Netherlands for the Invictus, if they'd gone there and back and not visited the Queen, who's 96 next week and suffering from mobility issues, and there are health concerns, as we know, it would undoubtedly have been seen as a serious snub and something clearly they wanted to avoid. So, I mean, I'm obviously pleased that this has happened, and hopefully some form of dialogue will have begun which can be productive in the future, because in the 2 years since the Queen last saw Meghan, of course, there's been the destructive interview of Oprah and a great deal of unhappiness in this very unfortunate royal rift.
As you quite rightly say, Richard, a lot of people are saying, well, if they can come for this, why didn't they come for the service of Thanksgiving? I guess part of the problem there would have been, though, the talk would have all been about Harry and Meghan had they been there, and perhaps a visit on the QT was the better way of doing it.
Well, there is that argument. I mean, as we know, Harry has a case against the government because he believes that he and his family are unsafe in Britain. I mean, why they were unsafe, say, if they had attended the Westminster Abbey service, but were safe when they paid the so-called secret visit to the Queen. Apparently tourists saw them and so forth, is unclear. But obviously this is a matter of dealing with, I would say, among the most unpredictable celebrity couple on earth. It's very difficult to anticipate what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and they want to be seen to do it in their own way. But on the other hand, I mean, it's to be hoped that in the future the Queen will see Archie again and also meet Lily, who she hasn't yet seen.
Yes, it's interesting that Buckingham Palace have confirmed that the Queen and Prince Harry did meet. I don't think we've had it confirmed that Harry met Prince Charles. And that might be very awkward meeting as well because of the things he said about the fact that Prince Charles cut him off financially and things like that in the interview. I wonder, what do you think? Given that Prince Charles would have been there for the Maundy service, they couldn't not have met, surely.
Well, it's been reported that they met, but not confirmed. I mean, very clearly, relations between Harry and Prince Charles have been very strained. And there's certainly, I mean, the tragedy of the once inseparable brothers, Harry and William, really were. And now we have a situation where the Sussexes have done a lot of damage to the monarchy. They acrimoniously stepped back only to step down over 2 years ago as senior working royals. Equally as they see it, they found freedom in the United States, and it's in the United States that they see their future lying. But as far as the security issue is concerned, for example, as they see themselves as philanthropists with an international brand, that will mean travel eventually. And whether or not the various countries that they will visit, whether the security will fit their demands is quite another matter. I mean, obviously, if this rift can be repaired or at least partly patched over, it's all to the good because it's been such a difficult period for the royal family. There are concerns about the Queen's health, and this meeting was very, very important, I'd say, for all sides. After all, the Sussexes haven't, apart from Meghan's mother, Doria, got close relations with family, and that, for budding philanthropists, is a huge debit.
It's problematic, isn't it? Richard, really good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Now, I'm a petrol head, Anne, as you know. It was when I was on. You were on Monday, Tuesday. We were talking about petrol heads.
You like your cars?
I love my cars. Yeah.
You wouldn't be a racing driver, though, would you? We're going to talk about racing.
I'd like to be a racing driver
because a lot of young men dream of being a racing driver. But it's not easy to get into. I mean, quite apart from the pressures when you do get there, but the skills that they need, the intensity of the practice.
You've got to be extremely fit.
Most people never get to even get there at all, do they?
No. But one man who's taken it in his stride is Simon Butler, or the Reverend Simon Butler, because he is the UK's first racing reverend. He's competing in the latter half of the 2022 Michelin Le Mans Cup as he continues his journey towards the 24-hour race of Le Mans. He joins us now. Very good to see you this morning. Happy Easter to you. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it, a racing reverend?
Yeah, I guess it's pretty unusual. I've kind of scoured the world to see if there are any other racing reverends, and I found there was one in the 1960s who was a rally driver. But other than that, I think we're in fairly short supply.
One of these little boys I was talking about earlier who's always wanted to be a racing driver. You sort of put it off while you went into the church, and now suddenly you've got the chance to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I loved cars from a really young age, and was sort of obsessed by all things with engines, and always have been. I was fortunate enough to start go-karting when I was in my early teens, and I did some single-seater racing, but as my sort of work in the church began to develop, and as I went forward for ordination, racing took a little bit of a back seat, and I sort of competed for fun, but all very relaxed and low-key. And then recently the chance came up to get back into something just a little bit more serious. And so I kind of grabbed it, and the dream, the hope is that we get to the Le Mans 24-hour race next year in 2023, which will be the 100th anniversary of Le Mans.
I mean, Le Mans 24 is something quite extraordinary. That takes a very special team, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I mean, the team are really crucial. I mean, as a driver, you put your life in the hands of the team because they prepare the car, they have to make it fast but also safe. It's a huge effort, and so there's the series we're doing now. There's about 20 guys and girls running one single car. And you have to trust your team, and you have to work together. You have to make sure everybody is doing their particular job. And if everybody does their job right, and if you have a bit of luck, then you might just get a good result.
So what is it you're actually doing now? Is it a qualifying race?
Yeah, so we're doing a series called the Michelin Le Mans Cup, which is a series of 6 races, so it's a championship, using the same sort of cars that run at the Le Mans 24 Hours. And that's all part of my preparation for the 24-hour race. So it just gives me a chance to get back up to speed in very, very fast modern racing cars. As you were saying earlier, to try to get a little bit fitter than I am currently. I've not been spending hours and hours at the gym over the last sort of 10, 15 years, so it was a bit of a shock to get back into that. But yeah, we've got a bit of time to build up to it, which is good.
I'd quite like to see you dishing out communion at high speed, Reverend, if you don't mind me saying. I just want to see the wafers fly everywhere.
Yeah, we were thinking we might have some sort of have a procession to the grid, or maybe some sort of incense in the pit box or something like that. You know.
Are you a working clergyman at the moment?
I am, yeah. So I have a group of 12 parishes in North East Hampshire. So I'm rector of a group called the North Hampshire Downs Benefice. I'm very fortunate. I've got some great clergy colleagues in the group of churches who are covering things for me this year. It's sort of a week or so at a time when I go off and race. But it's
what does your flock think?
For Holy Week.
I was going to say, did you say Holy Weekend? I was just going to say, how do you concentrate your mind on the racing when this is the most important few days in the Christian calendar?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I've been looking forward to getting back into a race car a lot, so I've been really, really excited about that. But you're right, Holy Week is a really, really important week in the Christian year, and obviously in the build up to Easter. And I've felt I've missed being there for it. You know, Holy Week has a lot of sort of marker points in it that kind of spiritually are quite nourishing and quite important. And it has felt odd to not have that kind of rhythm of services and events over the last few days. And particularly strange to be at a racetrack on Good Friday. You know, I'd normally be leading a meditation and having a fairly sort of quiet, reflective day on Good Friday. But instead, this time I'm sort of surrounded by enormous engines and sort of screaming cars.
Have you got an Easter-type, Good Friday-type message you could leave us with?
Yeah, sure. I guess I've just been reflecting on Good Friday is the kind of the darkest point in the Christian year, and it's a serious day, and it's a solemn day, and it's a day to sort of face the reality of darkness in the world. And I guess as we look around the world at the moment, we see a lot of darkness, and particularly in Eastern Europe. But for all the darkness of Good Friday, for a Christian, there's always the hope of Easter Day when the light pierces the darkness, and even the darkest of places are illuminated by the love of God in Christ. And for me, that's the joy of Easter, and I think for the church, that's the joy of Easter. And maybe in a world that does seem quite dark at the moment, we need that light to shine just a little bit more brightly and intensely than normal.
Yeah, very good point, well made. The Reverend Butler, good luck.
Yeah,
good to talk to you.
Absolutely. And happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you and all of your viewers.
Thank you. It's lovely hearing that message as well, spiritual as it was, with the sound of meow, meow going on in the background.
Yes, it's very important. I think the whole idea that death has lost its sting, as they say. Look, stay with us. We've got plenty more to come for you, including a final look, an extra look through the papers for you today, so don't go anywhere.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, And I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Co.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
"9:38 morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne on TV, on radio, online, just about everywhere.
On the app, everything.
Oh, yes, you like the app. You're very fond of the app.
Well, I like the app, yeah. I find it useful. It's because I can't get my DAB Plus to work.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
I think because it doesn't have a plus.
I think maybe you need to just buy a new car.
Yes, that would be much easier than trying to do anything on the radio on it. Yeah,
anyway,
quite agree.
let's take you to the papers. Last time today, an extra special chief executive of the Demos think tank and former advisor to Nick Clegg, Polly Mackenzie, is here. And author and academic Joanna Williams. Morning to you both. Joanna, we're going to start with the Telegraph and woke universities.
Well, I didn't call this woke universities, but this is a story. I guess it is a description of what's going on in some of our woke universities. It's one of the colleges at Cambridge University. This is quite a long-running story, actually. There's a chapel in this college, very old chapel, and it's got a plaque to commemorate a 17th century benefactor. Gave lots and lots of money to the college. A chap called Rustat, who I've got to confess I'd never heard of.
I'm not familiar.
Apparently very wealthy, gave lots of money. But now, 300 years later, 400 years later, is rumoured to have been linked to slavery. There was a campaign to get the plaque removed. This was then challenged by the Church of England. And the upshot of all of this is that it's cost over £120,000 and the plaque is still there. And it just really struck me as how out of touch student politics is and all these kind of cancel culture debates, because you think, what could have been done with that £120,000? And if the aim of some of this is to push back against racism and racism in education, well, actually, you know, you take some black kids at schools on, growing up on council estates, schools in rundown areas, and how much better spent that money could have been if it had actually been put into educating children who might never even get to Cambridge University. Just seems what a complete waste of money for some political virtue signalling to make a few students. And actually, it's not the students. I think it's more the academics and the head of the college at this Cambridge College.
Which college is it?
It's Jesus College, Cambridge. So, I mean...
Surprised they're not upset about their own name.
Give them
a few. Think. I mean, you know, on the one hand, yeah, in fact, it would be more acceptable if it was students making a fuss. But if it's their bosses... it is a waste of money. What do you think, though?
For me, I think it's most important, and it feels like a good settlement between these two rival camps, is where we provide information and contextual insight about, if you're going to commemorate or have a statue to someone who's a slaver, have a plaque alongside it, give people information.
Saying nowadays, in the 21st century, this gentleman is considered,
Because it's important, I think, for us to recognise the good and bad in our history. Loads of stuff were done in the name of Britishness and in the name of white people that I don't think any of us respect or stand for, but the reality is those things happened. None of us benefit from pretending that they didn't. It's really important to think about the reality of who paid for these buildings. What does that mean? And you don't achieve that by removing plaques. You only achieve it by adding more information.
Absolutely, but how many people have actually gone on and read that plaque in the last 50 years?
Probably no one.
Yeah, but exactly.
For me, so the much better thing to do is to think about how actually can you educate people about some of...
Update the plaque. It would cost 25 quid to update the plaque.
The problem is some of these campaigns are actually built on quite dodgy knowledge as well, because this chap, Rustat, I have to say, I don't know a whole lot about him, but, he wasn't as entrenched within the slave trade as he's rumoured to be, and this is one of the problems that's come to light.
Exactly, but wouldn't it be better if what we did is try and figure some of this stuff out and think about some of the people who, like most people, do good things and bad things. It's perfectly possible to have been a brilliant architect or a great philanthropist who was also racist or anti-Semitic or problematic in other ways. Let's talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. Teacher fatigue in The Guardian, Polly. I mean, this is worrying. We talked to someone the other day about this. A teacher came in, but it's hugely concerning, the stress that they're under.
It's hugely... an hour ago we were talking about the need for more nurses and doctors in our hospitals. We're seeing the same, I think, exhaustion, kind of public sector recruitment crisis among teachers. The pandemic was really tough for teachers. Lots of them teaching remotely, lots of them in schools looking after those kids who were there. Huge disruption, and they work incredibly hard. And what's heartbreaking is that basically 10 years of progress in narrowing the gap between rich and poor kids was eliminated in just the first 10 weeks of lockdown. And it's on teachers' shoulders, without, unfortunately, the relevant funding or enough people to deal with that. And it becomes like a reinforcing cycle, right? Because if you've got teacher shortages, it becomes really stressful for teachers, so more of them give up. Yeah. And so then you have worse teacher shortages.
And we expect more and more and more of them all the time, don't we? We expect them to be mental health care workers. We expect them to, take 5-year-olds and teach them how to, brush their teeth. Everything society falls down on. We say, well, why don't we teach them that at school?
Exactly, and so they end up being a kind of social service of last resort. As you see other resources in the community, local government being cut, more needs turn up at the door of the school. The school my kids are at hands out ready meals every Friday because they know there are food shortages among
Maybe we need to teach them how to make jewellery.
Nice link.
It's in the mail.
That's more.
So this is Mylene class, who...
Mylene?
I said Mylene, sorry.
Mylene.
I defer to the expert here, Stephen. Mylene class, who's showing off her new ring, which she has made out of her own breast milk. The Daily Mail details the process. Apparently you have to express the breast milk, dry the breast milk, you have to add coloured dyes to the breast milk, and then you make it into a little inset for a ring. But it's just,
the theme tune, sing the theme tune.
Yes. Sell it on Twitter.
This kind of thing's becoming all the rage nowadays. I mean, you can, if your pet dies, you can make a ring out of your pet dog or your pet cat's ashes. And I have to say, I think it needs to stop. I think it's gone too far.
I think it's gone too far too.
Love it. OK, Joanna, Polly, we're out of time. Really good to see you both this morning.
What a load of nonsense. What a load of nonsense. And it doesn't even look particularly good either.
No, it doesn't.
It's just a ring with a funny little dot on the top, which is apparently allegedly made of breast milk.
She should have expressed a bit more.
Oh, please, the very...
It's 9:45.
Yeah, it's 9:45 in the morning. You don't want to hear about that. Should we bring you up to date here? US defence officials say the loss of a Russian ship in the Black Sea will have a big blow for their naval capabilities. The Moskva sank after Ukrainian forces claimed to have hit it with 2 anti-ship missiles on Wednesday. However, the Russians put it slightly differently. They say the vessel went down after ammunition on board exploded.
Dozens of Palestinians have been injured after clashes with Israeli police at Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of the holiest sites in the city. Officers attempted to disperse a large crowd of people, some wearing masks, who authorities said were throwing rocks at the compound after morning prayer. The Palestinian Red Crescent says at least 59 people have been injured.
And the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have met in secret with the Queen at Windsor Castle. Harry and Meghan, who've not been in the UK together since they quit as senior royals, are also believed to have met with the Prince of Wales. The couple made the visit ahead of their appearance at the Invictus Games in the Netherlands.
OK, time now for the very latest showbiz and sport. Stephanie Tetchy and Paul Coit are both here. Oh, welcome, welcome, welcome.
I know, how about that? Both at the same time?
I know, I love it.
This, for the price of one.
This is how we roll, Paul. This is how we roll.
Showbiz is sport as far as I can tell.
Oh, it's true.
Sport is showbiz,
Really?
you know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's true. Yeah. Hey, now look, Stephanie.
Yes.
What have you got for us? Because we were talking Rihanna last hour. What about this hour?
So, guys, you know, Easter holidays, it's all about what's there to watch. So my recommendation will be Anatomy of a Scandal, which features Sienna Miller and Michelle Dockery, who was in Downton Abbey. They had the big premiere last night for it in Curzon, Mayfair. And the documentary series, it's a six-part TV series, and it's about a politician who's been accused of sexually assaulting his aide. So it's quite gripping viewing. Sienna Miller's great in it, and so is Michelle Dockery.
Oh, it's quite
so
heavy.
you were at the premiere?
No, I didn't attend the premiere, but the premiere was on last night.
What, all 6 episodes or whatever?
No, just the first
Oh, I
episode.
see.
People could
Oh,
see.
right.
So it was a red carpet. as we
Now, what are we
could
going to
see on
see?
the screens.
What platform can it be viewed?
Netflix.
Oh, right. That's me.
Yeah.
That's me done for this afternoon.
Netflix.
I shall be binging that. That sounds right up my street.
So if you're looking for something to watch this Easter, that would be my recommendation.
Good.
Oh.
That would be a long premiere if they did all 6.
Well, that's what I was
They'd
going to
probably
say.
still be there now.
Yeah.
There will be. Any scandals in the football this weekend?
Well, there's no scandals in the football, but there is a bit of trouble in the cricket because Joe Root has stepped down as England captain.
Has
so
he?
this is big news. Yeah, this has happened. This has been we've been expecting this probably over the last couple of weeks or so because things have not been very good as far as the red ball game's concerned. Of course, Joe Root is the England captain there. The Ashes, that was a disaster. Then went over to the Caribbean, that was a disaster also against the West Indies. We've had the chief executive, we've had the managing director step down, Ashley Giles. So they're looking for someone who's going to take over from him, which is expected to be Rob Key, who is also very well known as an ex-England cricketer and commentator as well. So I just wonder whether this has happened around the time that the new managing director is about to be announced, where the words have been said, look, this is not going to work out, Joe. I think it's probably time to step down. But it probably is. I mean, he's had a good run. I mean, he started off very well, but recently it's been very bad. And as far as he's concerned, I just hope he sticks around because he's a great batsman, he's a great player. But as far as captaincy's concerned,
So it's like a whole big refresh then?
Huge, yeah. They're calling it a red ball refresh. That's exactly on the money, yeah. That's exactly what they're calling it. Because as far as the white ball cricket, which is the one-day version of the game, and the T20, and also the 100 from last summer, so much time and money has gone into that. It's almost like the old style, the original version of the game, the red ball, the 5-day game, has been ignored a little. And I think he's had a tough time. Also, with all the everybody spending so much time with white ball cricket,
Documentary season.
I think it's at least an 8-parter. At least an 8-parter
That
on
will
Joe.
definitely be on its way.
Oh, what else is going on showbiz-wise, Stephanie?
Well, Ed Sheeran this week, I think last month, everybody was shocked on the untimely passing of Jamal Edwards, who died from a heart attack quite suddenly. And this week, Ed Sheeran has been filming a video tribute for him. So there will be a single that will be coming out for Jamal Edwards. So he's gathered some of the big musicians in the industry to dedicate a song to him. So hopefully we'll be seeing that coming out soon.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because the likes of me, I wasn't familiar with him. But when you look into what Jamal had done and how influential actually he's been in the business, and he was still
Well, they called him a genius, didn't they?
In that short space of time, in his 30 91 years of life. He helped so many people, not just the music industry, but inspiring young people with media and showing what could be done. And a lot of these careers that we see today, such as Ed Sheeran, Jessie J, Jamal was actually the first person to kind of launch them into the big mainstream. So it's quite nice to see that Ed Sheeran's paying tribute to him, because he said they were like brothers.
Oh, sad.
So yeah, it'll be quite interesting to see when that song comes out and the video comes out as well.
Of course, the other big showbiz news is Harry and Meghan.
Oh gosh,
they're showbiz now, aren't they?
Showbiz.
Well,
yes,
they've stepped down from royal life, so what else are they?
And guys, you know, I was thinking, was the Netflix crew waiting outside after they visited the Queen? Because
surely
as
not.
we know, the Netflix crew are going to be following them around this weekend in the Invictus game. So we don't know what it's going to be for, but I can imagine it's going to be for some documentary of Harry and Meghan behind the scenes.
You don't think?
Really?
You
Now,
don't think they
tell
could
you what, surely not something like that wouldn't happen.
Definitely, they love it.
If they
love it.
If they took a Netflix crew with them to Windsor, even to get a sneaky shot, that would be so cynical, wouldn't
They've probably done a little scene in the car, probably. It was
on the
like
way
just
there.
to address it.
Oh, I suppose.
Do you reckon they'll be shaken down when they walk into the palace to see if they're carrying any hidden cameras? Do you think? Because, you know, I would worry.
Give us your mobile
Yeah,
phone.
mobile phones, anything else you've got, OK, now you can go.
Can you imagine? I was at Robin Gibb from the Bee Gees when he died, and I got invited to the memorial. They had a big memorial event at the house, which was lovely. He was quite pally with Peter Andre, and Peter Andre was there. I mean, it was celebrity packed. I mean, I felt so out of place. But Peter Andre was there, being followed around by a camera crew, because he was all doing that fly-on-the-wall stuff at the time. Well, it was at the tribute memorial thing.
That's not right.
Oh, this is a bit weird.
Yeah.
That's not right.
So I don't really like this following you around business.
No.
Not that anyone tries to do it with me.
No, well, not that you've signed a Netflix deal worth million to be followed around.
Not yet. Maybe I'd change my tune.
There's a camera on you now. I mean, who would ever think? Let's hope not, surely.
Actually, there are quite a few.
Yes, oh my goodness.
Oh, can we ask? I want to sort of the Cinema Barcelona. I was going to ask about the Foxes actually.
Yeah, well, Leicester looking great. I mean, it's been a very difficult season for them, nowhere near the success that they would have hoped for, but they have had a lot of injuries. But a great result for them yesterday over at PSV Eindhoven. So it's the new competition in Europe, which is which people are sort of poo-pooing a little bit and saying, well, it's not as important as the Europa League, it's not as important as the Champions League. But this is the furthest Leicester have ever been in Europe. And if you support a team that goes well in Europe, then it's great. And I think it's actually a very good idea.
What does the PSV stand for?
Yeah.
PSV, you know this is going to be Dutch. And there's no way that I will be able to. But I would guess that sporting would be the word. That would be my guess.
Sporting.
Yes.
Stephen was asking earlier, because we've been talking all morning about the fact that this is going to be 22 million cars on the road this Easter. It's going to be pretty difficult getting to where you want to go. If you're going to get on a train, it's going to be, and airports and all the rest of it. And you were asking, would you rather be stuck on a train or a car?
Because I was thinking car, just because you know the windows and you don't have to.
Yeah, but Owen has called in. Hi, Owen, to say I'd rather be stuck on a train than a car because at least there is a bathroom.
That's a fair point, and a cafe.
Fair point. I would have thought it's an incredibly important point.
Yes. Yeah, never thought of that. How about you, Paul?
More space on the train, definitely.
Yeah.
I've had that moment. I think so many people have that. You're sitting there, you're stuck in traffic, and you're thinking, God, I really need to go right now. And just the thought of that.
The more you think about it.
Oh, the more you think. Even now, just thinking about it. So I really, I'd go with the train.
And the children, we say, Mom, or something, and then you have to figure out how you cope with that. Nick says, me and the wife will not be getting away. We have a B&B to run in the sun in sunny Bridlington.
Oh, Bridlington.
See, that's the way to do it.
Very nice. Would you? Are you a sort of getaway girl? Because you've just come back from the Seychelles.
Oh, you're exposing me. Yes, I do like a getaway. But the good thing about the pandemic is I love doing staycations, actually, because the places that I never, would have thought about, I was going to. I felt
like the garden, the kitchen, the upstairs bedroom.
5-star dinners in the kitchen, everything. It was just amazing. But We've got a beautiful country and there's so many beautiful places we can escape to, but it's just annoying when it gets to times like Easter and everyone's going to the same place. So I avoid.
No, you're quite right. We did all discover the little places in our neighbourhoods that we'd sort of forgotten about.
We just need the weather now.
Well, we've got the weather.
We've got it today.
We've got good weather today.
20. Well, the Express, which always likes the figures of the weather. 23 degrees, it says, a sizzling Good Friday.
Go and throw a shrimp on the barbie.
That literally is few what a scorcher.
It is.
3 degrees, few what a scorcher. I mean, I feel sorry for the fans, and take it back to football, but the fans of Liverpool and Manchester City, they've got to head down to London with the no train situation, with this FA Cup semi-final at Wembley, how they're going to make it down. So I don't think they have the choice of car.
Well, let us know
train.
Let us know how you plan on getting there if you're a fan, because we are going to be back with you at this time tomorrow.
Yes, we are, but that's it from Paul, from Stephanie, from me and from Anne. To the Point is up next with Patrick and Mercy.
Hello there, I'm Stephen Keats and I've got your latest Met Office forecast for you. The Easter weekend, not looking too bad for most of us. Some warmth to be had, 1 or 2 showers, but as we go on through the weekend, progressively turning a bit more unsettled from the west. But for this morning, though, high pressure still hanging firm to the east of the UK, and that will exert an influence across much of the country, actually. These weather fronts not really making much inroads from the west. That said, though, for parts of Wales, southwest England, a bit damp, drizzly first thing this morning, some mist and murk around the coasts. Quite cloudy for Northern Ireland and the far west of Scotland, too. And this is how it will remain for much of the day. Further east, though, that's where we're going to see the best of the sunshine. The cloud tended to bubble up through the afternoon and 1 or 2 showers possible across eastern England. Across Northern Ireland, though, if we do see a bit of brightness developing, we could see a few heavier, perhaps thundery showers this afternoon. 14 degrees there in Belfast. Contrast that with a warm 22 degrees in London, so likely to be the warmest day of the year. Showers across Northern Ireland then will tend to fizzle out through the evening, but 1 or 2 breaking out across parts of Northern England into southern Scotland. These will push their way further north this evening into Saturday morning to sit across eastern Scotland for the first part of